Hello, and welcome back to another diplomacy commentary. I'm here once again with Ezio. Hi, Ezio.
Hello.
And today we're commentating a tournament that could change the face of diplomacy. That might be overstating it just a little bit, but
Could.
basically,
It could.
basically, Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook, is currently developing a diplomacy bot. You may have heard of this on one of our earlier commentaries where we did a spot the bot about it. They're attempting to improve that right now, and in order to do that, they are running a diplomacy tournament involving this bot in every single game to see how it competes against real people. Um, Another fun fact, the people in this tournament are technically the only professional diplomacy players in the world at the moment because Meta is actually funding the players in this tournament, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But yeah, this is the first game I played in the tournament. I'm currently playing. The tournament is 100 games long, I think, so this might be quite a long series if we cover all of them. I'm not really sure whether we will or not yet. But I am participating in this tournament. This was the first game I played. It was like the sixth game total, I think. And we're going to go through and have a look at how it turned out. We are not going to reveal who the bot is. I know who the bot is. Ezio does not. Feel free to make your guesses throughout the video, as Ezio will be doing, I assume. So,
Yeah.
I assume you won't be able to spot the bot from the opening moves, but is there anything that particularly stands out to you here?
Um, Not really. The most notable things, in my opinion, are the fleets in the north. Kiel going into Holland and Brest going into English Channel are the two most non-standard things here, I would say.
Yeah,
Um, but this is a gunboat game, so there's a lot of value in just saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing," and Germany is just telling Russia, "Hey, we're friends. Be friendly."
yeah. You can tell it's been a while since we've done one of these commentaries because I completely forgot to mention that it is a gunboat game. There is no negotiation. Facebook has, well, Meta has not yet created a bot that can actually communicate with people. Instead, they communicate through their moves, or that's what everyone has to do in this variant. And also, I forgot to mention, I played Turkey in this match. So I'm down there in the corner with potentially the most standard opening. But then it's Turkey, you don't get a huge amount of choice, right? But yeah, this move into Holland is definitely unusual. Usually you would see it go up to Denmark, but then in Gunboat quite a lot. Germany's let Russia into Sweden, generally speaking. So maybe this won't affect the German too much. And then we've got, of course, the move into the English Channel here. Uh, yeah. What do you think is the advantage of the move to the channel if you don't follow it up with an army? Because usually it would be followed up with an army to try and get the convoy over, right?
Not necessarily. My understanding is that in Gunboat, this is just the safest set of openings by France, really. It's to say, I'm France. If England doesn't get into the channel, I'm going to be safe in the mid game. And so I'm just going to get two on Belgium, and I'm not going to die. If England, I think the dream in this position is that England did open to the channel, and then you bounce, and then you're very happy with your position. As is actually getting into the channel, I think is not the theoretical best case for them, but you're still pretty happy to be in Belgium.
Yeah, although with the German opening to Holland and Ruhr, you're not necessarily going to get Belgium even with two on it, right?
That's true.
It takes a quite a courageous German not to cover Munich, though. Uh, but yeah, I guess I can see this being the like safe French opening, but I would usually want to open to Mid Atlantic anyway. I think just because I like getting Portugal. It doesn't matter too much if you, say, lose Brest or whatever to England, because usually they're taking it with a fleet if they do take it, right? So you can get it back. It's not ideal, but getting more builds at the start is usually better.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine. This is not an opening that I tend to play. I don't think I've ever actually put these orders in. It's one that I've considered strongly, though, because I agree with you. I like getting Portugal. The counter argument is that I can get Portugal later. And if you open to Mid Atlantic Ocean and England opens to the English Channel, it's really common that they just follow you into the Mid Atlantic Ocean while you take Portugal, and suddenly your position gets potentially awkward. Usually not too awkward, right? I don't think you're going to die early, but it's just an annoying position. Whereas when you put your fleet in the English Channel, your openings tend to be more fluid. Admittedly, France is, I think, relatively annoyed here because they are not guaranteed to take Belgium, and Italy opened into Piedmont, so France is just kind of upset. But I think France is always going to be upset no matter what they've done with Italy and Piedmont and Germany putting two on Belgium.
Yeah, this at least here, like they know there's not really any point in going for Belgium, so they should just bounce Marseille from Burgundy, right? Because there's always the risk if you try and bounce it from Spain that you're just going to go straight back. Italy just holds in Piedmont or supports you back, and then you don't get your centre.
This is a really important time to not self-bounce in Marseille.
Yep.
I know it's tempting, it looks cool, but it exposes yourself to the support, and you might just lose the game immediately.
Yeah. So on the southern front, apart from that move to Piedmont, everything is pretty much entirely standard, right? I think these are the most common openings for every single power here, apart from the Piedmont move.
Yep. So we just have a pretty standard opening in the south, and we'll see how things play out. Again, it's gunboat, so everybody else is looking at this, and it's kind of just up to what they want. There's no cool negotiations that have happened.
So, shall we advance to the fall then? See how things panned out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alright. Fall 1901. We do see that cheeky attempt at a support from Italy.
And we also saw France not move back to Marseille.
Yeah, they they left it completely open, which is a very bold move, especially when the only advantage to doing so is that you're putting two on Belgium, right? Which you're already not sure you're going to get.
Yeah, I would never have done these moves as France. But I mean, I think France said, "Hey, I committed to the English Channel. I've got to get some value from that move," so he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have definitely not done this. I would have played it. Burgundy would have absolutely ended in Marseille, and maybe Germany would then decide to be friendly with us and build a couple fleets because we'd have vacated Burgundy kind of willingly. I might have even supported myself in there to really seal it. Hey, Germany, let's work together against England. You've already got this fleet in Holland, so you're probably not that interested in going after Russia. We'll figure something out, but no, now there's still an army in Burgundy, so I think Germany is going to be interested in kicking that out.
Yeah. These are it's quite a painful situation all around for France, right? Because they kind of have to build in Marseille. They don't absolutely have to, but it's going to be really awkward against the Italian if they don't. And the build in Marseille doesn't really get them anything.
Yeah, here I would definitely build a fleet in Brest.
And then cover from Burgundy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say it's. I mean, Germany's going to attack me. If Germany attacks me, that's fine, but it'll be okay. Depending on the build, if Italy doesn't build an army in Venice, I would actually just retreat Burgundy to Gascony and then Portugal back to Spain. And if they take Marseille, I'll kick them out and say this is fine.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have to build an army in Marseille to just not die, but I hate building an army as my first build as France. I really, really hate it. So I would just find any way to not do that. But whatever, that's just France. I mean, it's insane. We can see that Turkey is actually really interested in working with Russia to the extent of letting Russia into the Black Sea.
Yep.
Um,
This
yeah, I
is
mean, you know that Russia's getting Sweden, so Russia's gonna be strong, and I guess the hope is that Russia just stays on side forever. Are you gonna let him into Khan? Is that the plan? Maybe.
it's an interesting thought, right? So I should say this was my first game of Gunboat in maybe 2 years, I think. And I'm not entirely sure how to play Turkey in Gunboat. I know that Black Sea is super important to have, but at the same time, I saw this Austria-Italy, and this Austria-Italy looks very tight to me. This specifically the move to Piedmont to move away from the Austrian, plus of course no units anywhere near the border here. I'm just thinking, how on earth am I going to deal with this? I kind of need to send my fleet out, but there's an army in Constantinople blocking it.
Yeah, this is where you really want to hold with Smyrna. I think in Gunboat, it's actually really important to hold Smyrna instead of moving into Khan because there's much less coordination. It's generally more likely that you don't get kicked out of Bulgaria. So I think holding in Smyrna in the spring, so that way you can move Ankara into Khan. Like, if you're interested in going for this, right? I was assuming you were just going to keep bouncing Black Sea, and then you're fine. But if you're willing to let Russia in the Black Sea, I'd at least get my fleet from Ankara out as payment.
Yeah, of course the issue here is if you move Constantinople to Smyrna, you're like making your situation worse after you've gone there because then you block your fleet build, and Italy can just get a free move into Eastern Mediterranean. So really, my spring moves kind of screwed me over in terms of trying to get both fleets out. I clearly wasn't intending to do that. So I was just thinking, oh god, how do I recover from this? I guess I need a solid alliance with Russia to try and fight back against this AI if they do come for me. Yeah, so I chucked a double support on. I'm not sure if that's the right move here. Especially with Russia now getting a double build. They could just build Army Sevastopol and come round, right? It would not be a terrible decision on their part.
It would probably kill you very quickly.
Yes.
And then Russia has the ability to just go and kill Austria with Italy, right? Because Italy's probably going to get Smyrna on a lot of these lines, especially if Russia uses Armenia to support into Smyrna. And then they've cut you up, and then they can cut up Austria, and you just created very strong Italy-Russia.
Yeah. So I guess I'm betting on the fact that the supports hopefully solidify some kind of alliance with Russia.
Yeah, but like, what happens when Russia builds Army Sev? Because I think they're going to build Army Sev most of the time here, right? Their builds are going to be like Army Sev, Army Moscow, or Army Sev, Army St. Pete. Is there a world where they go like Army St. Pete, Army Moscow, and just ignore the South? Is that what you're hoping for?
Like, that even wouldn't be that great because you still, if you're in a juggernaut, you still want to make progress, right?
For you, yeah. I'm just like, it feels like you're letting him build an army in Sev, and now once he has an army in Sev, he's going to say, well, I can just take Armenia.
Yeah, I'm not sure I thought this through incredibly well. It should be noted these are 5 minute per phase gunboat things, so 5 minutes is a lot of time to think about 3 moves, but it's also not a lot of time to get used to playing gunboat again after that.
Yeah, this is your first game back, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to claim that.
Yeah, I can use that as a good excuse. But I think so far you've made 2 mistakes. I think moving into Khan is a mistake, and I think not bouncing Black Sea is a pretty big mistake. I don't think you can let him into the Black Sea this turn. I think the support in Armenia is enough to tell him, hey, I want to work with you. But then you bounce him out of the Black Sea in this fall, and then in the spring next year, you can try to shuffle yourself around, like maybe Smyrna to Syria, Khan to Smyrna, and then Ankara to Khan or something like that. That feels terrible also. But I think you just let him into the Black Sea in the spring next year so he can't build an army Sev, and he's going to go into Ukraine instead of back into Sevastopol.
That does make sense. Regarding a con move, there is one big advantage to it, which is obviously if Austria hedgehogs or something similar, or tries to support you up to Romania at some point, you do have the chance at that double build. But it is a bit of a long shot, regardless, because you kind of need a support no matter where you're going.
Yep, and it's a gunboat game, so finding that support's really tough.
Yeah. So, shall we go ahead to the builds? Is there anything else to talk about here?
It's just notably that England took Norway with a fleet instead of an army, so Russia's even safer than what it could otherwise be.
Yes,
But that's it.
the army move here, like back to London, is pretty sensible, to be honest, given the French fleet in English Channel. You don't really want to leave that open, especially considering the move to Belgium didn't look that appetizing, so London probably looked a lot more so. But yeah, Russia is going to be quite happy that there's a fleet there instead of an army. It's always a nice thing to see.
Yeah, so let's go to builds.
Alright, Winter 1901.
The biggest one, I think, is this fleet, St. Pete North Coast.
Yep.
The second biggest, I think, is Fleet Kiel. And then the next, I mean, Fleet Liverpool, kind of, but not really. Maybe Army Paris is bigger than Fleet Liverpool. I don't know. But, like, the northern builds are interesting. The southern builds, everyone did the things, so there was nothing interesting.
Yeah, Naples usually preparing Lepanto here. Then, obviously, Austria is always going to build two armies. That's kind of just normal. The Army Paris...
Like, this fleet, St. Pete, without an army in Moscow. I feel like you are not likely to take Norway like this, and this fleet is going to piss off England a lot.
Yeah.
That said, maybe England simply can't defend is the argument. However, in this position, Germany can just go into the Baltic Sea and say, hey, how are you going to defend Sweden? Because England's not going to attack me right now. But that's the German thought. And so, if you built an army in St. Pete, then you can still pressure Norway, but you can also go to Finland and protect Sweden. And if you followed up this fleet with an army in Moscow, at least you can take Norway, probably. I don't like this fleet build right now. I think it's too early.
Yeah, it feels very, very committal, right? It's like, if you put an army there and you want to go after England, you can at least do St. Petersburg support Sweden to Norway, and maybe that works to get you out of the way of the German attack that might be incoming. But then...
Sure.
But then it needs to be an army so that then it's useful for something, right? If it's just Fleet St. Petersburg North Coast stuck behind Fleet Norway, it's never going to be useful for anything unless you can somehow push through into Norwegian and such.
Yes, so that's why having an army follow-up is super important, because then you can use it to take the Barents Sea, and suddenly your fleet's in a useful position. It can maybe go to Norwegian, it can maybe do whatever, but without an army to follow it up, you're going to move to Barents and just let Norway retreat to St. Pete? That seems crazy.
It feels like this has to just be reliant on Sweden's support St. Petersburg to Norway and hoping the German is attacking the English player.
Yeah, and just really, really hoping that Holland is tapping the North Sea. It's just, as Germany, what do you get out of that? I think, as Germany, I'd rather just move into the Baltic Sea.
And then
now, maybe Germany will tap the North Sea. Sorry?
And then you just take Sweden with the English blessing, yeah? But
yes. Yeah. Now, what I'm looking at it is maybe, right, you tap North Sea, and then in the spring, so that North Sea doesn't support Norway, you take Norway, and then in the fall, you expect England to attempt to retake Norway from North Sea, potentially via convoy through London or something, and then you do that while you take Sweden, so that way Russia can't defend Sweden. But either way, for the Russian player, you don't end this year with Sweden, which is the key. Yeah. Okay, maybe you have to use Sweden to tap Baltic Sea in the spring then, because it's so likely to me that Germany's doing that, but then suddenly you need, So...
Yeah, then this fleet in St. Petersburg North Coast is just useless, right? Because it gets stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways, not great, but he did build an army in Sev, so maybe he's gonna try to kill you too.
this is very
Um,
possible.
and he's just saying, "Hey, Austria and Germany, please don't kill me." Um,
And then, of course,
yeah,
the
maybe.
Fleet Liverpool, as opposed to Fleet Edinburgh, uh, it's a lot more clearly anti-French, I suppose. But it's like, is it
France
gonna
is in the
get
channel. What are you
far?
gonna do, man?
Yeah, I
You
suppose you
gotta
can't
gotta do
really just
something.
go all out on Scandinavia while France is in the channel. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's why I think France wants to bounce in the channel, because then both sides are just safe and happy. But I think Germany's the one who's deciding where things are going to go in the north, and in the south, it's the tactics that are going to decide where things go. And it looks pretty bad for you and Russia. For you in particular, it looks pretty bad for you because the tactics look like they're designed to just have you lose Bulgaria and lose
yeah,
Ankara. And like, what are you gonna do about Eastern Med Aegean? Are you just gonna let Austria into the Aegean, or are you gonna try to bounce? Because you gotta bounce Eastern Med, but man, this is ugly. Good luck.
it is very painful. And then I guess the last build to talk about, this army Paris. You said you don't like building an army as your, extra unit, as your first unit. I said you might need the
Yeah.
army in Marseille. France ignored us both and goes for army
Yeah.
Paris.
I mean,
Is that?
clearly he's gonna move Burgundy to Marseille again, and he's just gonna move Paris to Picardy. And so I think it's going to have a very similar effect. Assuming Burgundy bounces, then he can use Spain to bounce Marseille, and he can then have three on Belgium. So I think that's the greedy play here. To
Yeah,
try to get your fleets back, get your fleets back on board. But I don't know. Like, if you're going to defend Marseille with Burgundy anyways, wouldn't you just have loved to build a fleet in Brest here, and then you just move it to the Mid-Atlantic Ocean, and then I don't know, you're dancing. But
yeah. I wonder if Paris is there to support hold Burgundy for one turn before taking Marseille from Burgundy.
so the line is you support whole Burgundy, and then in the fall you cover Gascony and support yourself into Marseille. Okay.
Probably. It would be a bit of an odd choice, though. Especially considering the Italian unit could get supported up by the German. It's unlikely, but
In a gunboat game, there's no way.
mm, but yeah, Germany is almost certainly forcing Burgundy here, right? There's no reason not to, I could see, unless you're just going all in against the English and you want to get the
Yeah,
French
that's the
alliance.
argument is like a strategic one. I think just like tactically speaking, as Germany, you want to force Burgundy so that way you stay safe, and like France isn't going to attack you. And if you go take Belgium, then France is going to realize what you're up to, especially if you take it from Burgundy. So I think it's likely Germany forces Burgundy here, but I don't know. I've seen people in gunboat games not do that.
Well, shall we see if it's the case for this one? Spring
Yeah,
1902. So,
cool.
quite a nice thing. Like, things work out incredibly nicely for me in the south, although I don't know if you want to focus on the north first.
I mean, we were just talking about Germany forcing Burgundy, so let's just
Yeah.
look at the north real quick, and we say yes, he did in fact force Burgundy, and France just didn't care about Marseille, which is fine. He's got two on Marseille, and Italy can't defend. Um, and he moved Paris to Picardy, and now there's a German army in Burgundy, and Germany's got three on Belgium, so Germany's looking good. But for Russia, he's not in any position to defend Sweden, and he just attacked Norway with two. So is England going to support hold Sweden? I don't think so. So I think Russia's really sad about that. Um, the only thing that Russia's happy about is now the South, where hey, look, Austria is going to kill Italy.
Yep. I mean, so on the Western Front here, these French moves don't make any sense to me at all. Uh, I suppose trying to get the fleet out of the English Channel is a very pro-English signal, but it doesn't feel like it's worth trying to signal here instead of actually covering yourself. Um, It, this ends up being quite similar to the moveset we were talking about, where you try and take Marseille in the fall, but the problem is now you've got Germany in Burgundy, and you've just moved to Picardy instead of staying in Paris. So now Picardy has to move back to Paris again, just in
Yeah, my
case.
line would have still done something similar, right? I would have just the difference in my line versus this line. The only difference would have been that Piedmont would have been bounced out of Marseille, but I would have still lost Burgundy because I would have covered Marseille, right? Or I would have moved to Gascony straight away, even, right? Yeah, I wouldn't even try to defend.
Mm.
So actually, my line would have ended in the same position exactly. Oh, that's really funny.
Were you doing
Um,
Paris to Picardy?
I was gonna So, okay, sorry. My line involved building a fleet in Brest, not building Army Paris. And I would have just
Yes.
moved straight back to Gascony
Oh,
and
that's
then said,
true.
Paris, Schmaris. Um,
Yep.
but I don't know. I would have been pretty sad here, obviously. I also don't think, I don't know. I would have done things very differently as France, but we're not worried about that anymore. France is in Gascony and has to cover Paris and has to retake Marseille. So Germany can just wreck France and support hold Marseille just for jokes. And then France doesn't get a build. Do we assume North Atlantic Ocean's moving to Mid Atlantic Ocean? Because I kind of assume it's moving to Mid Atlantic Ocean. Oh yeah, why didn't Liverpool go to Irish?
That's an odd
Norwegian
one,
Sea
right?
exists.
I
Yeah,
guess
Norwegian Sea
I
exists. Okay,
guess it's
that's fair.
because they want to leave the option open of working with France here and turning around, going to Norwegian, which could work out for them, given that they
How
do,
weak France is, yeah.
yeah, and they do kind of want to get rid of these northern Russian fleets because they're going to be constantly harassed until they do. Um,
Yeah, Fleet St. Pete North Coast, man. It's a deal breaker.
but then one of those
Okay,
fleets is going right now anyway, right? Because Germany is about to get rid of it.
I
Um,
mean Germany's gonna take Sweden, but when Russia builds a fleet in St. Pete, they sometimes are crazy and disband an army, or like fight in the Black Sea or something.
Are you thinking Sweden retreats to Skagerrak and then they just keep going for Norway?
Like again when Russia's build fleet St. Pete North Coast '01, they tend to be very interested in the North. They're like, hey, Norway's mine. I have more of a right to claim it than anybody else on this board. Give it to me. Sometimes. So I wouldn't be convinced, right? I would say it's likely that, of course, they lose Sweden and they take it off the board because that's what you do. But maybe they retreat it to Bothnia and then they pop St. Pete North Coast. I think that would be better.
Yeah, I think that's definitely better. North Coast is just less good than Bothnia because it can only go to barons. There's you
Yep.
can tap Norway forever, but it's not gonna do anything by
Yeah,
itself.
Bothnia is there. It has move options. But yeah, so now let's look at the south. And we see a nice Austrian stab of Italy in '02.
Yeah, incredibly nice. It would have been perfect if Italy had gone for the Lepanto, because, well, actually, Ionian would have been bounced out of Eastern Med, so Naples would still be in Naples and able to cover Rome. But if they had
Yeah,
successfully
they're
Lepantoed, Venice and
yeah.
Rome were gone here, which is,
Yes, and also Italy wouldn't have convoyed back into Apulia. That said,
yes.
I think if Italy was going for the Lepanto, they wouldn't have gone for Marseille. They would have covered Venice. I think, um, just because they wouldn't want to lose the game.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe. Um, so this is looking pretty nice for Austria in the very short term. But now that Italy is going to defend, like we can assume there's going to be a fleet in the Adriatic Sea. Um, so is Austria going to be able to hold Venice? Maybe. But now Galicia is going to go to Russia, guaranteed. Aegean is going to fall to Turkey, guaranteed. Although that one you would need Russia to throw support hold in on Bulgaria, maybe. What did
Yeah.
Romania support Budapest into Serbia?
Romania supported Budapest to Serbia, which is an odd one. I'm not sure why. Because it seems It seems pro Austrian, right? It's like supporting Serbia to Bulgaria, but it's not quite as overt. It's saying please go this way.
Yeah, I like it because it's like it's never gonna do anything. Wait, they could have supported Warsaw to Galicia.
Yeah,
In this
that's
case, it wouldn't have made a difference,
it wouldn't have
of
changed
course,
anything.
because Serbia cut. Um, but that's the move that's relevant, man. Whatever. Russia did Russia things. They didn't try to kill you, right? If they were trying to kill you, they would have moved to Armenia, but they didn't.
Yes.
So I think you're fine.
Yeah. But
I don't think it mattered.
it does look like this support is just going, if you do take Bulgaria off of Turkey, I'm your friend. Here you go.
Yeah, I
Have a
think it was
support.
more if you are. I'm happy to let you move out of Budapest, right?
Mm.
Was more the move. Um, it just like in this case, it should do something productive. It should either be supporting Warsaw to Galicia or it should be support holding Bulgaria. I just like pretty clearly doing one of those two things. Because if you're moving into Galicia and Ukraine, you're clearly not friends with Austria, so you clearly need to like mess with Austria, and forcing Serbia to trade with Romania is a good deal for you because sometimes they won't. Sometimes they're gonna go like Serbia to Greece, Greece to Aegean or something, and then you just end up in Galicia, or whatever. Let's assume they do that, but then they support Budapest to Galicia or Vienna to Galicia, with supported by the other one. You get a bounce. So it just Romania should clearly have done something productive here. I don't think this move means anything. I think it's just a bad move.
Yeah. It's probably true.
Wide
Is there
games,
like
man.
any scenario where there's a self bounce there that it advantages Russia to stop?
Okay, if
Uh,
Trieste and Budapest misorder and they both move to Serbia, you would be very happy with Budapest ending up in Serbia rather than staying in Budapest. That's true.
yes, but that's never going to happen. So
But yeah, what universe are they going to self bounce there? If Austria is moving Trieste to deal with the East, they're just moving it into Serbia, supporting it with Budapest, or maybe not even supporting it, right? Tapping Serbia would be totally reasonable here, right? Because sometimes, yeah, you're going to bounce Trieste out of Serbia. You're going to cut Serbia's support of whatever, whatever. I
I
think support holding is totally fine, but
I just realized it's almost certainly a misorder for Bulgaria, right, instead of Budapest. Um, because on web diplomacy, you set the target province first, so you go, the unit in Romania supports a move to Serbia from, and then you just click very quickly as you're on a 5 minute deadline and it looks like Bulgaria, but it's not actually. Or you're just going, I don't actually want Turkey to make progress, but I'm gonna try and throw a believable misorder here.
it's a gunboat game. No one reads whatever. Look, it's fine. I think that's reason. I think that's a very, very plausible idea. I think the misorder is a good thought,
Yeah.
but just not a good move. I don't ever have this issue because I just type in my orders. Right?
Yep.
You can use tabs and then letters, and then it's fine. Budapest is easy because it's the only B that's adjacent. Anyways,
I mean,
um,
Bulgaria is also.
yeah, but the first one, right? The if you but when you type in B, it goes alphabetical order. So you say B, and then it's going to be Budapest first, and then Bulgaria next. So you go B, and then move.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's fine. I think
Alright.
the misorder is reasonable. I think they wanted to support you into Serbia, and in this case, if you just randomly tapped Serbia, it would have crushed.
It absolutely would have,
Then
yes.
there was an actual thing, but that didn't happen. But I think you're like ecstatic about how these moves went. Right? Austria
Absolutely.
stabbed Italy. Russia didn't kill you. Yeah, you're doing great.
I think I was anticipating that Russia would go Romania up to Galicia with Warsaw support and then Sevastopol to Romania, which is why I threw the support on there.
And that would have worked right here.
Yeah, I also think it's just the best order for keeping Galicia, right? Because if Austria doesn't stab Italy here and goes for a supported attack on Gal plus a cut on Rum, that's the only way you keep Galicia neutral.
Yep.
But yeah, Russia did not
I think
decide
that's a
to do
very
that.
reasonable support. You're trying to work with Russia. I think that's clean. But Russia is not doing great. Let's look at the fall.
All right, going ahead to fall 1902. Um, well, shall we? Where shall we look at first here? I guess the
So
north
let's
is a
look at
lot
the north, because
simpler.
I think the north is the simplest.
Yes.
So Denmark takes Sweden, um, but it shouldn't have, because I think um, Norway. Oh, sorry,
No,
no, that's a
Norway
mistake.
is trying to support Baltic into Sweden.
Yes, I
So
misread that. I thought Norway was support holding Sweden, but because Sweden was moving, it didn't matter. But no, it was supporting Baltic, so it didn't. Whatever.
yeah,
Denmark took Sweden is the key, and Burgundy took Belgium, and Gascony took Marseille, North Atlantic Ocean to Norwegian Sea. So England is saying, "Hey, nobody kill me." France, I'm not going to kill you. Germany, I'm not going to kill you. Is this the worst Western triple in the world? It remains to be seen.
yeah, because Germany does pull out of Bulgaria as well, into Belgium.
Burgundy, yeah,
Sorry, Burgundy. Yeah, they would.
and they
It
pull
would
out
be
of Denmark.
difficult to pull out of Bulgaria,
So
but
maybe
yes,
it's just there's an extra fleet in the north. That fleet happens to be in Holland, and the French fleet's in the English Channel. So if it's a Western triple, maybe not. But
things things are suddenly looking better for England from a terrible spot. It's like
yeah, from a strategic perspective, I think England is pretty happy here. Is France going to build a fleet in Brest here? I mean, I would, but oh, and then
well, they've only
Germany's
got
going to build a
one
fleet in
option,
Kiel.
right? There's no way
Yeah,
they build army Brest. That would be terrible.
I mean, you say no way, dude. I've seen France's be lunatics, man. They've already got the English Channel. What more do they need?
They just build
Sorry.
army Brest and then try to convoy it across. I mean, it could work.
Oh, that
Um,
would be hilarious. Actually, they would never see it coming.
uh,
Anyways,
but
sorry.
France does actually have a problem of the Italian in Burgundy now.
Maybe, but Italy's got a disband, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true because Austria took
So
Rome.
that's
Uh,
that's gonna be Burgundy. By the way, I really, really like these Italian orders here. I think this is a great way to handle it. Um, I think just having Apulia tap Venice, so there was no way for Austria to support themselves into Venice, meaning Italy was going to lose only one center here no matter what. Whether that center is Rome or Venice, there's no guesswork involved, right? And so this way there's only going to be one unit on your mainland, and you're now in Adriatic Sea and Ionian.
yes.
I think this is just a really clean way, like to put a little bit of a stopgap on the bleeding. Obviously, things are better if he doesn't let this happen to begin with. And like seeing these specific orders from Austria, obviously they would rather have done things differently. But I think these are great moves from Italy. Now in the south, Austria is trying desperately hard to work with you against Italy, and you're just saying neener neener neener.
Yeah, this it seems like a very pro me moveset from Austria, but I don't know that working with Austria is in my best interest here, especially with Russia and Black Sea, right? Because
Yeah, you kind of made your bed here.
yeah, um,
Although I would have been really tempted to tap Ionian anyways, and then have Khan move to Aegean, and then Smyrna to Khan. I would have done it just to mess with the Italian position. So I think the bot would have been really sad because I would just use my fleet position to take Greece. Um, but
mm,
I'm also hella greedy, and I just assume Austria's never attacked Bulgaria.
yep.
I don't
Uh,
think they ever do. I think Bulgaria is invincible.
I, I mean, it would have definitely gotten away with it here. That's true. I don't
Yeah, like my
like ever leaving. Well, if I have a chance to defend Ankara without, anything going particularly wrong, if I do so, I like to do that because there's always the possibility of Romania getting convoyed in here, which just is terrible.
yeah, that would kill you. Yes, that would be game over
But then,
instantly.
if he did want to game over me, he could have done it by moving to Armenia last turn instead. So, like, this may have
Yeah,
been
well, this is the advantage of
overcautious.
being a stab, and stabs are far more satisfying.
That's true. And it's got the advantage of already seeing Austria start to go after Italy, so you know that you've got a potential ally there.
Yeah, potentially, but I think interesting. You think that Austria attacking Italy makes it better for you to attack Austria. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy here. So my thinking is that you like having a strong Italy as Russia, right?
Yeah.
That's just your most natural ally. And so whenever Austria attacks Italy, they usually just have the upper hand in that fight.
Yeah,
So
they
you
as
like it
in
when Austria
Austria, yeah.
doesn't. And then Italy just sits around waiting to stab, and then once they make their move, you get your gains.
Yeah, that's true, because the standard, like, gunboat meta, I guess, is this RT versus AI thing that usually happens where well, I say that standard gunboat. There's equally standard is when Italy just rushes Austria off the bat, but when it does lock down into this AI versus RT war, usually the loser from that is Turkey on the outset, because Turkey is the one who's facing two opponents there. As Russia, you've got a very sparse border. Um, Austria can make progress if they end up in Silesia and pushing back, but as Russia, you can just hang on for ages and wait until that Italian stab comes in, and then when that Italian stab comes in, you usually benefit out of it, because you can mop up the centers on the other side. Uh, but yeah, so that does make sense. I would still definitely consider working with Austria here. Um, they do seem
That's
like they. Well, I say as Russia, I would consider working with Austria here. They do seem like they would be quite friendly, but they would also get quite strong. That's true.
So I agree with you, right? If you were to give me this board position right here, I would absolutely consider doing that, right? If I'm taking over this power. When I'm making predictions about what this Russia is going to do, there's no way they're going to work with Austria here. Absolutely no way,
Because they didn't go
right?
into Armenia or.
Bounced in Galicia twice. They've supported themselves into Galicia. Or sorry, they've bounced in Galicia 3 times, right? And
Yes.
fall in spring, fall, and then spring again. And now they support themselves into Galicia. They did this instead of guaranteeing Armenia in the spring. They moved out of Sevastopol into Ukraine. Like, if they're not attacking you, then what are they doing? We're working with Austria. And they're clearly not attacking you, so I think they're just attacking Austria slowly. They supported Bulgaria into Serbia, right? Like,
Yes.
they're clearly attacking Austria, and their only thing is might be setting up to stab you, but make it a really clear stab. They are currently attacking Austria, and so that's a thing, right? Maybe they're going to stab you, okay, but
But yeah, it does
they're,
feel
they're they're
like
trying to say they're attacking Austria.
the where this all stemmed from, of course, the possibility that I could have gone Conte, Aegean, and then Eastern Mediterranean to Ionian. That probably would have just been the better moveset here, getting the army up into Constantinople and ready to attack forward. As is, having fleet con is very, very awkward. It's going to be difficult to backfill Bulgaria with anything useful. But hey, we'll see how that turns out. Is there anything more you want to talk about this phase?
Let's see some builds.
Yes, we can see the builds here, and we will do our first power rankings after them. There goes the Army of Burgundy. Army Brest gets built. Of
Oh
course,
my
it's
god!
an army. Okay, if this gets convoyed to Wales, it'll be great. I should say, I know what happens in this game, obviously, because I was in it, but I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention to what was going on the other side of the board, especially right at the start. So this is like, oh man. If this does not get convoyed to Wales, I think it's a terrible, terrible build, because now you're stuck at one fleet forever until you get Belgium anyway, which feels very difficult to do with this strong of a Germany. You're relying very heavily on English support now.
I mean, less heavily than in some situations because France does have a fleet in the English Channel.
Yes.
Um, but we'll see. Anyways, you want to talk about power rankings, right?
Yes. So, Actually, before we do power rankings, do you have any thoughts on who the boss is? Because
Austria. Humans don't stab Italy. Only bots do. Right? Humans have beaten into them from an early age. You never attack Italy as Austria. Bots make that move. There's no human that's going to make that play.
do you think the human logic there is good that you should never attack Italy as Austria early?
I think it's a really good heuristic. I think if you don't know what's up, you should never do it. But I think there might be positions where it's a good idea. I think this was maybe actually one of those times because we talked about how potent the stab would have been if Italy had simply continued going for the Lepanto. And Italy's do that, let's just say 60% of the time when they move to Piedmont. I don't know the exact numbers on it. I'm sure we can look and see very similar, like after those Italian moves, ignoring the rest of the board, how frequently does Italy continue going for the Lepanto? And if they do that, let's say 75% of the time, then that move is 75% to just give Austria two builds and kill Italy, and then Austria is in incredibly good shape.
Yeah.
Right? They say never stab Italy because they don't want to get you locked into a huge, drawn-out war where Italy just is never quite dying because you stabbed for just Venice. The heuristic of, oh, when you can take Rome is suddenly a very different world. So I think this might be a good stab.
The problem, of course, is that you're never going to have the fleet power that an Austria-Italy alliance would have, right? So Turkey's going to be a problem. Turkey is going to be a problem unless you can get Russia to help you take them out. Or if you can get a solid alliance with Turkey, but that's so rare. It's so difficult to form a solid AT, especially in gunboat.
That's true. I think that's very true. My feeling is that I don't trust the Italian-Austrian alliance. Right? I've talked this whole game about how my strategy as Russia is to stall out until Italy stabs Austria. My plan as Turkey is similar, and so it's just to stall them out and then grow, because Italy naturally grows by attacking Austria in many, many games. So I think saving yourself from that as Austria reduces your potential enemies from 3 to 2. And yeah, sometimes things go crazy, and like Turkey and Russia get angsty and stab each other, or sometimes they just play badly and you just outplay Russia, and then you take Warsaw, and then like they're broken and you stall out. Like again, I don't know if this is a good stab or not. I very rarely, if ever, go for these types of stabs. I do them occasionally, but I think this might have been a good time to stab. But I don't think I just don't think that a human is going to look at the builds in 02 and in spring say I'm going to kill Turkey I'm going to kill Italy right now. I don't believe that people do that.
Yeah, I mean that's very fair.
Like,
I guess we will see as the game goes
possible,
on.
right? It's possible that Austria is a human and that like Germany's the bot and the bot just went crazy and didn't go after Denmark. I don't know if bots do that opening though. I think they go for Denmark almost always, right? So I don't think that's Germany. France, I trust in the AIs better than to build this army Brest.
Yes.
I believe bots are better than that. We know that you're Turkey, so that's gone. So the only remaining options are Italy, Russia, and England. You know, it could be England, or excuse me, it could be Italy actually, because an Italian AI. No, it's not. Italian AIs always go to Tyrolean 01.
So I should say this is a different AI to the one. So Ezio is definitely an AI expert to some extent. You've played how many games against AI now? Several hundred?
I think like 150 or something.
Yeah, and AIs have gotten substantially better. If you've seen the early videos on this channel, like the one against the Paradox diplomacy AI, those are awful, like exceptionally terrible. The normal ones on web diplomacy, I believe, are the University of Montreal ones, developed by Philip Packett. And then Meta took over at some point and have been developing this AI. This is the Meta AI, which is supposedly, according to their paper, substantially better than the Montreal one. So it's not exactly the same bot that you play against, but it is a bot. So
okay,
it is still
in that case, I can't say that it always goes to Tyrolia. Okay, but so then what would make this one? It doesn't feel. Maybe it does. So the support from Paris, from Spain into Marseille in '01, right? That's neat. That's definitely a thing that AIs would do. Um, and then not going for the Lepanto. That is fair, because I think the vast majority of humans in that situation are just going to continue going for the Lepanto, right? They've moved so far. Austria's done normal Austria things. Maybe humans just do it, and then this was a good bot realizing my position's really exposed, actually, and then, like, defending. But if you were thought, wouldn't it have been more efficient to just cover Venice and then go for the Lepanto? You still end up losing Venice in the fall. Okay.
That moveset of convoying back to Apulia, it made me definitely think that Italy was more likely to go to Lyon than to continue up into any attack on me, right? They kept they kept up their attack on Marseille, and they made a moveset that would put them in Tyrrhenian Sea. So I assumed they would be going west at that point. But obviously they couldn't continue that because they got jumped by Austria. So yeah,
Yes. So in the spring move, your argument is that there are human players who just like attacking France and don't YOLO for Lepantos every game.
yeah.
And so then humans might do this instead. That's reasonable. Okay, that's a good human argument. Yeah, that's a good argument
It's
for humans.
certainly easier to get a fifth dot out of France than it is to get a fifth dot out of Turkey, right?
Yes, I agree with that completely. So I think that's very reasonable. I like that a lot. So Italy is totally plausibly human. It's not super likely bot anymore. Which is then so yeah, it could be England. I don't think England's done anything terribly wrong, right? Like just annoying that France moved into the English Channel, but sometimes that happens. They've covered London, Fleet, Liverpool. I mean, they're playing a game, supporting into Sweden from Baltic rather than Denmark. I mean, that's just a probabilistic thing. A lot of AIs do that. You're happy that there's an army in Denmark, so I think you're okay. Yeah, it could be England. I think it's Austria right now. I'm putting my claim on Austria because Austria does like that stab. I think is just inhuman. I mean, maybe it's a little human. Humans like stabbing. I'm saying it's Austria. I'm sticking to it. You can't convince me otherwise.
Okay. And then I guess we need to do our power rankings here. I feel like Germany is number one, right?
Yeah, I think it's less clear than it should be. Right, Germany clearly has the most centers. Right, clearly grew the most. That's good. The issue is that France built another army, so France has to attack Germany, right?
Unless they convoy to Wales. It's a possibility.
Sure. Okay, if France convoys to Wales, Germany is clear number one. Completely agree. Let's assume France doesn't do that, which is just my assumption because the France that built an army in Brest doesn't convoy to Wales in these types of situations. They use it to attack Germany.
To like fill up the two slots they can attack Germany in Picardy and
I
Burgundy.
completely understand, but their mentality is, "Ooh, I get unit attack Germany. Go, go, go."
Yeah.
So I think France is going to attack Germany.
And then
If
it's
France is
very hard to
attacking Germany,
see where Germany goes, yeah.
right? They built this fleet in Kiel, so I think they want to attack England, right, with their third fleet.
Yeah, it seems likely.
And England sees that, right? So England's going to work with France against Germany.
Germany can just end up in Hell, Den, and Hull this time, but yeah, then England can just rotate because Russia got rid of that northern fleet now, right? So England
Yeah, there's
has
going to be
the
a fleet in
freedom.
Skag in Norway.
Yeah, it suddenly doesn't look so good. I'm leaning more your way now. I'm thinking maybe German
Right.
position isn't that good. I still feel like they're the strongest power in the West, just based on the fact that the other
Yes.
two powers kind of have to be allied to fight against the German. I don't see them gaining a ton very
I see
quickly.
England gaining Sweden,
Yeah, that seems quite likely.
right? Because Baltic to Denmark is supernatural. Holland support Kiel to Hell is supernatural, and then you just move Norway to Skag, Norwegian to Norway, North Sea support Norwegian to Norway, and then you can cut Denmark and take Sweden, and
Yep.
so England gains Sweden. Because I just assume Bothnia is going back into St. Pete to cover it, because that's what happens in these positions. And then England suddenly on 5, Germany's on down to 6, and France just has a million armies.
Yeah, actually,
that's
that's a pretty strong English position, because your
well,
objective as England is usually to claim the north in terms of fleets, right? You knock all the other fleets out. There's no other fleets threatening England right now. The two in, well, okay, there's Holland and Kiel. They're the big two, but like
also in the English Channel still, and all of this assumption was predicated on France not convoying into Wales.
Yes,
If France has a successful convoy into Wales, England is dead.
That's true.
Just game over instantly. So I don't think we can put England like actually in a high position, but I think it's no one's position is good in the West. Yeah. They are all doing poorly because they can all just die, which is not good.
It should probably be France who's in the strongest position by dint of being France, but they only have one fleet. This is like...
Yeah. If France had a fleet in Brest, France is the strongest player on the board. Absolutely. That's just a fact. I would pick France over anybody else here.
Okay, but given they don't have a fleet in Brest, who's your first pick on the board?
I don't know. I'd probably pick Turkey.
I mean, I'm very happy to go into first.
I'd probably just take your spot and say, let's go. Good luck, Austria. I mean, again, I'm annoyed with how things are. Right? I would have been in a very different position here, but even still, right, like, my plan is to just get Ankara into Smyrna, or get into Khan, and then just take Greece. And just assume that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Hope that Russia gets into Bohemia, gets real pressure on Budapest. Shit, maybe Italy supports us into Greece from Aegean. Not happening, but maybe. I would assume this happening.
But yeah, like, that's the really interesting thing about this position from the power ranking standpoint. Both the obviously strong players supply center-wise, Germany and Austria, are about to get squeezed by everyone around them. You can't just go completely alone in gunboat all the time, right?
Yeah.
So...
maybe Russia's position is good. They're not in danger of losing St. Pete anytime soon.
They have Black Sea.
Oh, wait a second. Hold up. They totally might be. Because Norwegia can just go to Barents and just take St. Pete.
That's true, actually. Yeah, and then England... but then that requires England to stick with Germany, and seeing the
for another turn, yeah. Makes that unlikely, I agree. But it means that I don't know. Yeah, dude, I like France and Turkey here because they're both the corner powers and they're not getting attacked. It's stupid.
Okay, you know what? Let's rank from the bottom. The worst power on the board right now is Italy, right?
Italy. Yep. Yes. We can fully agree. Okay. Yes, it's Italy, absolutely.
Second worst power on the board is I have just...
now let's skip power rankings this year. Let's see what happens this year.
Well, the thing is, I think I left them on a random order from last time, so they're not very coherent.
What's the random order here?
Russia, then England, then Italy, then Turkey, then France, then Germany, then Austria. Which does not seem like...
put Italy at the bottom, right? Italy goes to the very bottom. We need to agree on that. And then let's move Austria to, like, third place?
Behind whom, though?
Oh, I don't know. Just move up to third. Whoever was first and second. Or just move Austria up to third, and then we'll just leave it.
Okay. So, our official power rankings here would then be Russia first.
England, I can get behind that.
England second, then Austria, then Turkey, France, Germany, Italy.
I think we did it. We put France over Germany, but I'd rather be France than Germany in this position. I would.
This, like, okay, well, you know, this is a punishment on all the people who like, skip ahead just to see what the power rankings are for the next year and then skip all our commentary. So they're just going to be going, what? What is going on?
That's great.
All right. Okay. There we go. Our new power rankings are up. Let's move ahead to the spring of 1903.
Okay, so yeah, there's the convoy into Wales.
Yes! Go France!
Okay. Yeah. Okay, England is dead.
England did take St. Petersburg, and they have it guaranteed, weirdly, which is, because they...
Did it?
Yeah, because they put the fleet in Barents, so they
That's
can...
great. Okay, yeah, England is hella dead. Wow, that's impressive. I just assumed they couldn't go for St. Pete, but that's crazy. Okay, good job, England. Nicely done.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh my god, Bosnia to Finland? It's like Russia thought that was an army in Norway, and they were going to do the standard nonsense.
I mean, I assume they were trying to block against Sweden to Finland, but, like, Sweden to... If Germany is attacking Russia here, they probably just convoy to Livonia or something, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I would assume they just, like, walk into Prussia and Silesia and whatever, but, like, who knows, man? It's whatever. It's whatever. It really doesn't matter. This is a bad move. Russia lost St. Pete. They're going to disband Fleet Finland. That's fine. England is still dead.
Yes.
Germany is going to take the North Sea and have a huge advantage over France. So Germany's in the best position now. Okay, great. Our power rankings are awful.
Okay, hang on. Shall we correct the power rankings as per this year, or like?
No, I mean whatever. We'll see. Like we're fine. We're fine.
All right.
Okay. So now we look at the south. Did you try to convoy Ankara to Bulgaria?
I mean, how else am I going to get the army there, right?
Constantinople to Smyrna, Ankara to Khan.
Yeah, but that doesn't go into Bulgaria.
You can convoy to Bulgaria next turn. You could just support into Bulgaria. We need to convoy it. You're crazy. What are you going to do next turn? In the spring, are you going to take Bulgaria with the fleet?
I mean, maybe Russia will convoy Ankara to Bulgaria.
Oh, so next turn, you're with Bulgaria vacant. You're going to rely on Russia convoying you to Bulgaria again after he just lost Galicia and vacated Ukraine. You're going to have to... Wait, he lost Romania.
He didn't... Oh, yeah, he's... Oh. That's... Yes. Okay.
He retreated to Warsaw. Oh, my God. Well, he didn't... This Russia's a terrible player. Holy smokes.
Yeah, these are fairly poor moves from the Russian. Clearly, they should have entered Black Sea convoy Ankara to Bulgaria.
Clearly. Yeah, obviously that. But no, it's just after the retreat, right? So, Galicia had the option to retreat to Ukraine. And instead they retreated to Warsaw. Now, St. Petersburg has been lost. It was lost with the fleet. So Moscow doesn't need to cover Moscow anymore. It can't help St. Petersburg anymore. So Moscow can cover Warsaw still, and Ukraine can hold Romania. Right? This is clearly a position where Russia needed to just say, okay, St. Pete's lost, the North is lost, that's fine. Warsaw, Moscow, Romania, Sevastopol. They stay in Ukraine, they cover Warsaw and keep bouncing, and they hold Romania. And then because Austria lost Greece, and Italy and Austria are still at war, there's actually a chance you guys can push back Austria immediately, right? And then you guys are going to get your gains. Instead, he's going to lose Romania, and Austria's going to go +1 this year. Maybe +2, depending on Naples. Yeah, this is terrible from Russia. That retreat is the worst move of the game.
Yeah.
But
just...
Actually, no, I think the convoy to Bulgaria... No. That one was terrible. You're not excused, Captain Meme. No.
Look,
but,
okay, look at it from... Ukraine to Moscow probably is not something you'd expect here, right? You would expect Ukraine to be contributing on this front. I feel like there's a decent chance that Ukraine just supports hold Romania, in which case Black Sea might be doing something else. And
like supporting Constantinople to Bulgaria. Or what?
It might convoy Ankara to Bulgaria. Who knows? But,
yeah. In a full press game, you're absolutely right. In a full press game, this is great. This is actually a clean way to untangle yourself. And you stay safe. And then you convince Russia to not be a lunatic. But, meme.
But yeah, this is absolutely what happens when you stick a press player in a gunboat game.
Don't be a lunatic. I love you. Great. Okay, so this is fine.
But yes, so Italy is in Trieste now.
Yeah, but they
Austria didn't
lost
even
Venice. They have
bother
to cover
defending
Naples
that.
now.
Yeah, they
And
do.
because Austria... Okay, actually, Russia didn't lose Romania. That's funny.
Oh, because
That's
Italy
funny.
is in Trieste. Yeah, yeah.
And they need to take Trieste back. But maybe not. Maybe Austria just says, screw it. I don't care about Trieste. I'm going to have Piedmont support Albania to Trieste. Rome taps Naples. And then you need something else still. Okay.
Venice, but yeah,
You
yeah.
Russia might be saved here. This retreat might not be the literal worst thing ever, but it's a really bad move. That retreat is awful.
Yeah. Um, yeah,
All
I
right,
feel like
let's
ignoring
see the
Trieste
next
might be the
moves.
best move here, because otherwise you have to, like, retreat so much stuff to try and cover everything against it. It's just a
Yep,
bit painful. But yeah, so we didn't really talk about. Well, yeah, we did. We talked about the North enough, right?
we just said England's dead, and then we moved on,
Yep.
and that is
Uh,
the takeaway.
and Austria tried to support me into Ionian. Do you think there's any possibility I should have taken that? Um,
I think that would have been better than what you did.
this is probably true.
um,
But hey,
but no, I don't think moving into Ionian was a good play this turn.
okay, let's go ahead to the fall of 1903. See what happens.
Yeah, how do you untangle? Right, you have to go Colin to Smyrna.
Have you moved ahead yet?
Oh, that's hilarious, and I love it. I love it. Okay, that's great. That's truly great. Incredibly, unbelievably slow, but that's great.
It works. It absolutely works. Only because
I
Austria
love it.
is not likely to take Greece back, but hey.
You're,
uh,
why not have Greece do the support, and then Aegean supports hold Greece?
that would make more sense, yes. But then there's the possibility that Greece gets tapped and then you get.
Oh no!
you
Okay,
self
Dean,
bounce.
you're a lunatic. I love it, but you're a lunatic.
Okay,
At
so
least, whatever.
to explain to people who might not understand what's going on here, I entered the convoy order again, Ankara to Bulgaria. Obviously, that relies on the Russian entering this convoy, which isn't the most likely thing because they kind of need to protect Romania here. So just in case they don't enter that, I also put in Constantinople to Bulgaria to protect it. Then I need to make sure that the convoy actually goes if it's convoyed instead of bouncing against Constantinople. So you add a support to that move, which takes a lot of units, but it looks kind of cool. So yeah, and now I'm suddenly in a decent position. I've got two armies in the Balkans.
Yeah.
There you
It's
go.
just really sad here because we had a position where Austria was incredibly overextended, where Italy was attacking him, and they're like, if we were a little bit faster, we could have gotten into Ionian this turn. We could have done so much really powerful attack, but instead we spent our whole turn moving Ankara to Bulgaria.
Yeah, but it was in a cool way. So
Yeah,
it's
but like
fun.
last turn, right? If we just moved Ankara into Constantinople, we could have then moved both of our fleets.
Yeah.
Whatever. You're safer against the stab here because you're defending your homeland better.
This is true.
So you have to worry a little less about like he couldn't. Ooh, yeah, he couldn't have convoyed into Ankara because he would have then not convoyed Ankara away.
There you go. He could have
There we
convoyed
go.
into Constantinople. Would
Yeah,
have
but
been a
actually, that would have been so funny. You go for this, and then he just convoys into Con, and you just sitting duck. Okay, that would have
uh
been great too.
but
I
yeah.
I love these moves. It's great. I'm super happy for you, and I'm so happy that it worked.
It's so, but yes, you're absolutely right. Austria just consolidates everything, right? They lose Greece, but they manage to take Venice to offset. They kick the Italian army out of Trieste, and now they have all of their units here. They didn't get Romania, They focused on taking Trieste instead, and now Russia is in Galicia. So they do have some problems coming. There are 4 armies here, but they're in a much more solid position than if we'd been a bit faster. This is true. And they may have German assistance, given the German just moved to Silesia. So yeah, that seems to be the case over here.
Yeah, the West is funny because France and Germany are at war. France and England are at war. England and Germany are at war.
Yep, and
Not every day.
the only people showing any sign of affection for each other right now are Russia supporting old England in St. Petersburg with the fleet that's about to presumably be blown up because
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
in
Russia
Finland.
and you are showing a lot of affection for each other too.
Okay, the only 2 people in the West, sorry.
Yep.
I don't know if you can call St. Petersburg the West. It's
I
the
don't think
North
you
more, I
can. I don't think
suppose.
you can call Russia the West either. So
Yeah. But they do have some. Well, that Finnish fleet is an honorary Western fleet. Um, but yes, so Germany, instead of going to, I would have probably wanted to move Munich to Ruhr here with Berlin backfilling Munich. Projecting power into Silesia is sometimes a good move. It's nice to be able to affect the way the rest of the board is going, but not when it costs you the war against France. Right. Being in North Sea is quite useful for defending Belgium, but it's still not perfect.
you'd rather do other things with the North Sea.
Yeah. Such as kill England.
Such as kill England with France. But I mean,
Absolutely.
it's fine.
Yeah, I should say here, while I'm talking about projecting power onto the other side of the board with Cilicia, an hour and 12 minutes into our first video is probably the right time to talk about what the scoring system is for like 2 seconds. We're using sum of squares in this game, which so usually in our videos you don't hear anything about scoring systems, and like scoring systems are very they're controversial in diplomacy, and you know there's like a million different ones. You don't usually hear about them because usually we do top board format, which just means the person with the most supply centers at a given date wins the game, and that's just it. It's very simple. Sum of squares, you get a certain amount of points, and you get more points if you have more supply centers, but you get less points if someone else has more supply centers. So you ideally want to keep everyone else equal while you advance, right? So if you project your power onto the other side of the board, you're trying to do it to keep everyone else even while you're growing on your side. But in order for that to be
Yeah,
effective, you need to be growing on your side. You can't just throw units to equalize everyone else while you're getting killed, because then you don't get anything more from that. You still have to
yeah.
gain supply centers.
The one sentence summary, it's you take the square of your number of supply centers and then divide it by the sum of the squares of everyone's supply centers. And the bigger your number is, the higher your fraction of the total points are at the end.
Yeah.
So
We'll include
if
a
you want to
link
get a
in
lot of
the
points, you get a higher fraction.
We'll include a link in the description afterwards. Generally, it measures how close you are to a solo, or that's what it tries to do. Because generally, to solo, you need to have a very high SC count, and you want the rest of the SCs to be as divided as possible.
Yeah, that metric I think it fails on pretty terribly because whatever. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it. It's
I
fine.
mean, you can absolutely get a ridiculously high score in Summer Squares without being anywhere near a solo at all. But yeah, it's
Stalemate lines exist, but we're not talking about the scoring system. We're just that's what the scoring system is. If someone gets really far ahead, that person's gonna get a really good result in this board.
yes. I should
Um,
also say end year. There isn't a fixed end year for this game, but there is. So after 1908 ends, there's a 20% chance the game ends. After 1909 ends, there's another 20% chance, and so on and so forth, all the way to 1912. And then 1913 onwards, that increases to a 40% chance each year. So we don't know what exactly the end date is here, but I think on average that ends up being around 1909. So that's something to consider as well. You don't have to.
Wait, they started rolling in 1908,
Oh,
right?
sorry, 1910. Yes, not 1909. End of 1908 is when the first chance for the game to end is. Um, so I haven't done statistics for a while, but it sounds about right that
It's gonna go.
1910
It's
should
gonna go
be.
3 years on average, right? It's gonna go to the odds of a 0.8% chance happening 3 times in a row is like 0.512. So your game is on average gonna end not after the first one, not after the second, not after the third one. It's gonna end after the fourth one. So it's gonna end like 1912, I think.
Right.
It's gonna
Well,
be
the
likely.
first one is 1908, right? So 1909, 1910, 1911 would be the fourth one.
Start,
But
start
yeah,
of 1912.
somewhere around there.
But like it's likely to pass the first three and then fail in the fourth, right? That's like the theoretically most likely scenario. So I
Yes, but
think,
there will definitely be variance in that, should be noted. We
yeah, of
don't.
course, absolutely, it can change whatever. But we're talking about the average end year. I think, whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't played this, so I don't care.
But yeah, if there's any statisticians watching, please forgive us. We haven't done it in a while. Yeah. So I forget what this was about. This was about that move to Cilicia. That generated this whole conversation. Other things happening in the West. England is dead. Next. England isn't actually dead because they can support barons down to Norwegian survive for a little bit, but they're not doing so good here.
Yeah, they're in no position to make pressure on Sweden.
Yeah,
London's looking pretty useless. They've lost the North Sea. France does not appear to be a friend. Yeah, just not good for England. It's only a matter of time. And for Russia, they kind of need England to survive because if England doesn't survive, then they're going to lose all their centers to Germany in the north.
yeah.
So that's awkward.
Well, I feel
Should
like
you build an army in Smyrna?
I haven't moved ahead to that yet, but sure, I'll go ahead. Winter 1903, Army Smyrna. Uh, this is my build here. What is your
Ow.
feeling on the Army Smyrna build? I feel like I heard it in the tone of your voice.
What's the thinking here? You don't need another fleet because you're going to take Ionian and Aegean anyways, so you just want an army to sit back, stuck behind your units,
I think the
get it
idea
convoyed over to Apulia.
was convoy it over to Greece, if I recall correctly.
And then what, Greece is going to get into Serbia?
I think that was the plan. I'm trying because like the only thing that can support Serbia here is Budapest, right? And Budapest is definitely getting cut. There's like zero chance that's not getting cut, right?
Sure, so you attack up from Greece while Bulgaria supports, and you convoy into Greece, and then Constantinople just moves to Smyrna. Hope you're okay losing Ankara, I guess. Jeez.
I mean, you can cover rank from Constantinople. It's not really ideal, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a question of is Serbia more valuable or is the Ionian more valuable? Ionian is probably.
No. I have the solution. You just take Greece, you take Serbia from
Oh,
Greece, and you just
actually, yeah.
move
No.
Aegean into Greece and then con to Aegean.
Yeah,
Yeah, why are we
that would
convoy? Just
also
move.
work.
Alright, I solved it. But the army Smyrna is fine. It's a fine build, because you can still cover Ankara, and you won't have an army just sitting around out back doing nothing
Yeah,
in this position. Okay, that's fine. I like it. Good plan, good solution. You're in a good spot moving forward.
France got a fleet build. Finally.
France did. Yeah, normally you build before you take Liverpool, not after. But hey,
It's
we'll
kind of
actually do both
impressive.
before and after.
It's kind of impressive to take Liverpool as a 4 army, 1 fleet France.
Yes.
Especially with an army. Props for that.
Yeah, I mean the convoy into Wales just YOLO worked great.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
and then Fleet
he has
Finland
to
coming
take
off is
advantage of this
just.
part against France, though, right? Like, it seems likely to me that France is going to end up losing against Germany, assuming nobody in the East messes with Germany.
Yeah, like Germany has a slight disadvantage right now because they don't have their three armies on the line, but they can do that very quickly, regardless.
And they have an extra fleet,
And they have an
and
extra
they're
build as well because they're gonna get Norway if they want it. They can just push Denmark up to Skagerrak and then support North Sea in. Um,
you mean push Denmark into the North Sea while North Sea moves to Norwegian?
oh, that would also work.
Oh,
Yes.
Norway. Oh,
I
sorry.
was
Yeah,
thinking
Norway
Norway.
works. Norway is hecka easy. You're right. I
Yes.
was looking at Eddie. But yeah, Norway is a much safer one.
And then
France
actually,
is
once you
likely.
take Norway, you get St. Petersburg as well, because England can't block the move to Finland with a fleet on the north coast. So,
Yeah, so instead they would need to like disband Eddie or something, and then just keep Barents to support hold St. Pete and stall you for a little bit. So I suppose England can kind of throw to France here and give France an edge in the war against Germany.
yeah, it feels like Germany's got the advantage anyway.
It does seem that way, yeah. And then in the south, Austria is going to lose Serbia, and from there is probably cooked as long as you don't convoy Smyrna to Greece.
mm,
Because then you can keep Ankara safe here against this stab, and you can get yourself in a good position. You're still going to get your build, and then you're fine. Cool.
yeah.
Italy's dead. Rip Italy. I mean, the two fleets are going to be annoying for Austria to kill, because you can support yourself back into Apulia, and then you just support each other forever, and until Trieste gets into Adriatic, and then Ionian, you're actually okay. But
I mean, Trieste can get into Adriatic immediately, though, right?
can they?
If they're supporting themselves into Apulia, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but what if Austria then doesn't go after Apulia?
Then, yeah, it's a guessing game, that's true. Um, but yeah, well, shall we go ahead to spring?
Let's see it.
All right, spring 1904. Oh, it was a convoy into Bulgaria. I mean, either way it works, right?
Yeah, it works out very similarly, except you still have a fleet in Ankh.
Yes. And so I did protect against the stab. It was just with the other unit.
Yeah, and so your fleets are just still stuck, right? Like the whole point of getting the army into Ankh was that you get your fleet into Khan and your fleet into Aegean. So you're like pushing, right? You would have walked into Tunis this turn.
Yep, this is true.
Then
And
Khan would have been in Aegean, and so you're still fine. You're gonna get multiple builds to keep yourself safe. Man,
I get the feeling you don't like my position here. I mean,
I think your position is still a fine position, right? I think you're still in okay shape. It's just annoying that it's not better,
yes. This is
right? Because you're
definitely.
Turkey, Austria, and Italy are at war with each other, and you're just now getting to 6, and you're not like right. You're still only have one fleet in the Mediterranean. Ankara is like a year away from anywhere else.
Yep. I'm gonna get a second fleet here, because there's no way building. Even I wouldn't build another army after taking Serbia here. um, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's still very, very slow. This is true. I'm kind of relying on the other side of the board to also be slow, and it doesn't look like the other side of the board is gonna be that slow, given that Germany is about to take Norway, and France is about to take London.
yep. Unless North Sea supports hold London, which I think is a thing that that Germany should do, and then hope that England doesn't tap North Sea.
Do you think England wouldn't tap North Sea? I feel like they're
I
just.
think in this situation, as England, I wouldn't.
But
Specifically because I think that North Sea is going to support hold London. And I'm going to use Eddie to tap Yorkshire.
that's fair. The thing is, if you do tap North Sea, you probably end up in North Sea. Oh, actually, that's terrible because then you lose London and Edinburgh in the same turn.
You
Um,
can, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like, I
but
don't.
the
You
thing
think
is,
Liverpool's going to tap Eddie? Maybe.
I think so.
I assumed it would just go after Yorkshire, but
It
maybe it was
could.
go after Eddie.
Yeah, it can blow up Yorkshire here, but it can also just tap Eddie in the hope that Eddie goes to North, and then North gets supported to Norway because that's what the smart move here is to guarantee Norway. Um, and then England loses everything except St. Petersburg in the same turn.
Yeah.
which is painful. So you're absolutely right. You should not go to North Sea as England here.
Yeah,
Vote on the
my
fall.
team was going to be Yorkshire though, and my reasoning was entirely different. But I think your reasoning is valid too. I agree. I don't think you should tap North Sea.
Hmm.
And you really think that Germany would is okay trading dots here? Like they gain a dot, but also giving France a dot? I think Germany here would rather just support hold London, not take Norway. Still bounce in Norway, but then abuse their holding the line.
They probably shouldn't um, let France into London. Whether they do or not is another question, I guess. It's
Yeah,
like
they're gonna take Norway. Of course, they're just gonna take their dot. It's fine.
the thing is, Norway also leads on to St. Petersburg, right? So there is a benefit to taking it right now. You
Yeah,
can
I mean,
get
if France, excuse me, if England goes down to one, then yes, I agree. But if not, England is going to keep Barents and Saint Pete, and then France is going to walk into Eddie, and then they're going to gain two to your one.
that's fair. Yeah,
So I think you need to find a way to get Holland in on the action more. But Holland is kind of tied down supporting Belgium. I mean,
it
but then
doesn't
England's
need to
going to. What if
support.
England cuts North Sea, right? Because England can cut North Sea super likely, right? Just like a lot of Englands are bad and make that move. And so then you're just really sad about not having taken Norway.
Yeah,
Maybe that would make England, if you try to support Hold'em in London, England might choose to not keep Barents Sea, instead keep Yorkshire and Eddie, and assume that you're willing to help them stay alive in Eddie for a while.
it's
Maybe that's
possible. I wonder if
it.
actually the best move is to you don't bother support holding London, you go for Norway anyway from north, and you also go Holland into north just to make sure that Liverpool doesn't get Edinburgh. Um, you're risking Belgium by doing it, but
Yeah.
it seems more
I
likely
mean,
that Brest
it's
will
not going
get
to.
it guaranteed.
Yeah. France isn't going to take attack Belgium here. They're going for London, guaranteed.
Yeah, and they
Um,
need to put a double support hold on Burgundy to
but
ensure you don't take it. Then
interestingly, I think as Germany, if I'm taking Norway, I suddenly want France to take Eddie because
oh,
that
because then
does
Barents
reduce
comes
England
off.
to one. Exactly. Barents
Yes.
comes off. We take St. Pete next year, and so France has an extra unit for only 1 year, and our units are going to be free the following year to come back and fight. Whereas if they don't take Eddie, we have two units tied down to taking St. Pete next year, so they're not in the fight. And then the following year, they finally take St. Pete, and then they're only useful like what 2.5 years from now. You don't get the build for 3 years versus letting them take Eddie. You get the build next year and the build is already on board. So I think if you're taking Norway, right, you don't bounce North Sea. You just hope that it hopes it's a hit. I just still want to hold London, hold North Sea, say I have this position on lock, and then be okay. Um, but yeah, that's the North, which is a very fun position. I love these three-way types of wars.
Yeah, where no one wants to align with anyone else. You just have
Yeah,
to think about how is my dismantling of this person going to affect the other person who's also dismantling them on the other
yeah.
side. Um,
I like these Italian moves. Italy tapped Rome and tapped Apulia. So the only way that they lost Apulia was if they walked into Rome and then had a guessing game about how to not lose Rome slash Naples.
yeah,
So I
there's
mean,
actually a chance they build from that because if you win that guessing game, you gain two, right? Well, you gain Rome and you keep Naples. Um,
exactly. And then you have Naples open. However you win the guess, Naples is going to be open because
yeah,
either you bounce yourself out of Naples or you don't move to Naples, and neither do they. So it would have been great. I like these moves a lot. Um, from Italy again. The supporting themselves into Apulia would have worked too, but this I think is a little bit cleaner, has higher upside, still covers the same thing. Your moves we've discussed, I don't like it at all. Russia's moves I think are fine. I would have been really tempted to move to Bohemia instead of Warsaw here, but I think cutting Budapest had lots of value here, so
yeah.
I think it worked out. Oh god, could you imagine if Russia just went for a shuffle? Galatia to
Didn't cut
Bohemia, Armenia supports Ukraine
Budapest.
to Galatia, and you just would have spent your whole turn convoying, and it wouldn't even done anything. Oh lord.
I would have made one successful move, Constantinople to Ankara, which moves backwards. That's
Yep. But that
slow
didn't
and
happen. So
steady,
here we
taking
are.
slow and steady to another level. Yeah. But yeah. So shall we go ahead to fall?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right, fall 1904. And here we go. Germany does take Norway. England doesn't cut North Sea, but they do walk out of London. So
Wouldn't have mattered.
they
Man, so much time trying to think about should you support Hold London, and he just walks away. It's
I
like,
mean,
oh,
this is actually not terrible from England because it ensures that London doesn't get blown up, right? So if you want to defend your homeland, you can still. Well, you've still got that army in the British Isles that you can keep on the board. But you can't really use that without losing St. Petersburg. So either way, it's kind of like. You're not in a good spot anyway. You're just deciding where you want to live an extra year, I guess. But yeah,
no, England needs to find a way to convoy their army into St. Pete, and then walk into Moscow.
that would be helpful. Seems unlikely. Um, so yeah, and then the rest of the north is really inactive. We see that double support on Burgundy, and then double support on Belgium just to be safe. Support into Burgundy. I think. Actually, I was going to say I think Germany would have really liked to have moved into North Sea with Holland here if they knew it was going to be empty, but actually that would mean that they guaranteed lose Belgium next turn, right? I think. Oh no, they wouldn't because they could tap English Channel and Burgundy, and then they're fine. Actually, maybe no, they're not fine because Burgundy can then tap Ruhr and Picardy can support
Burgundy
English
cuts
Channel.
where Wales cuts North Sea, Picardy supports English Channel to Belgium.
Yes. Or France builds army Brest and then convoys Brest into Belgium.
That works too. Maybe
But yeah,
even better.
but yeah, so they probably are okay with not being in North Sea here. But they're probably not okay with Russia walking into Silesia. That could cause them a headache.
I think they're going to build an army in Berlin anyways, and I think that was going to be their build likely, but maybe it would have been Kiel instead.
Do you not think it's a fleet? I guess they have enough fleets. I just don't see them advancing because their army line is stopped, right? You can't get through Burgundy from here.
I think they're going to walk up to Livonia.
That would be solid. I mean, Germany can get St. Petersburg very easily here, as long as England takes off one of Barentsford's St. Pete, just by going into Finland. So if they do go after Russia, they've got a good launching pad for that attack. They'll have Army St. Petersburg.
I'm thinking that if they walked into Livonia, right, they would go via Prussia, and then they would take St. Pete, and then Moscow would be soon to fall after.
Yes, it would make sense. They'd be fighting a two-front war, but it's not a bad two-front war, to be honest. One side is pretty locked up, so you kind of want to go somewhere you can gain supply centers.
Yeah. And the other side is Russia, who has 4 units, and one of them is a fleet in the Black Sea, and the other is stuck fighting against Budapest.
Yes. So, yeah. I mean, shall we have a look at the east here?
Nothing moved. Next.
Nothing at all moved, this is true. I was very annoyed this phase, if I recall correctly, because of that bounce in Ionian. I was like, surely Italy is just gonna let me go because they want me to screw over Austria right now, but nope. I'm keeping Judas. Which is fair, it's good play from them survival-wise, right? And Austria kind of pieces them out. They don't go for Apulia.
Yeah, I mean, this is great from Italy. Like,
Yeah.
if Italy is trying to survive in this game, they need to not lose Tunis. Unfortunately, it is a matter of time type thing, because now you're going to build your fleet in Smyrna, and you're going to just take Ionian next fall, which is a pretty big delay, though. I mean,
Yep,
Italy bought themselves an extra year with that unit.
absolutely. This is true, and yeah, this mess of orders over here. Obviously, Austria supports hold Budapest, which is definitely going to work with the cut on Serbia, unless I get supported up, which was never going to happen. So this was just the safest move set here. Um, they also would have protected against any attempt to disband Albania because they're cutting Serbia, stopping me from supporting Greece up, and also stopping if I support Serbia and they stop the backfill into Serbia, so I don't get the build then. So yeah, nice moves on the Austrian front as well. The only other interesting move here was my throwing of, hey Russia, please go through into Constantinople, which would have actually given Russia the build that I would otherwise get here. But it would also get Russia out of the Black Sea. Do you think that's a good move on my part or no?
I think it would. I think it would be ecstatic if Russia took Constantinople, and in Gunboat, you kind of have to do things like this to make it happen. So I think it's fine. Um, it's just annoying that you're doing it by wasting another move with your fleet in Ankara. Now, because of how many moves you've wasted, interestingly, it doesn't. This move doesn't cost that much because you're going to build a fleet in Smyrna, and then you can move that to the Eastern Med at the same time that Russia takes Constantinople, and then you can take Ionian and then disband your fleet in Ankara or something. You can't even do that. No, I hate this. I hate everything about it. You would be happy if Russia just randomly decided to take Constantinople and nothing else, but I don't think you can waste the time that it takes to support him into it after building and then what's happening.
Yeah, do you think so? I think I think my thought process here was I really hate that Russian fleet still being in Black Sea because very soon it's going to be actually free to do stuff that it wants to do when Austria goes down. So I want it out of there. So I was thinking I'm just gonna sit in Ankara until Russia leaves, which is I'm not sure whether that's the best play or not. It's also it's an interesting excuse because if I've got the fleet behind Russia and they actually leave through Constantinople, I have the option of going into Black Sea myself, right? Which is nice, and it's not often you get the excuse to do that without having to deliberately build and tip them off in advance. But it is doing so at the cost of any pressure I could have had on Ionian at this point. So yeah, very, very slow moveset from me here.
Power rankings?
Yeah, we should do the power rankings. Well, let's move ahead to the winter. The Fleet Smyrna, Army Berlin, as you said. England takes off St. Pete and Barents, which is actually pretty significant here. For Germany, who I think probably jumps to the top of the power rankings. Would you agree with
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Worth noting how important this change is. If France had disbanded Eddie in Yorkshire instead, I think France is number one here.
Yes, I would agree. I think it's like England very much determines who's on top in the West here, and England's decided, I'm going to fight for my homeland rather than for St. Petersburg, which I'm not sure if it's the right move. It's so hard to get anything because you've got Yorkshire and Fleet Edinburgh, and Fleet Edinburgh can't do anything really. Army Yorkshire can be irritating for a while, but
Yeah, what's fun is that. So imagine if Russia wasn't as exposed, and so there was no really powerful attack Germany could hit on Russia after taking St. Pete. I think there'd be a very real argument that Germany should not finish St. Pete here and should go into the North Sea in Norwegian and then go to North Atlantic Ocean, help France take back Liverpool while you take Eddie, and then you just at some point take St. Pete and then you finish off England later, but let him mess up France for you.
yeah, yeah.
Of
No, I
course,
think
France
that's
shouldn't
fair.
have built another army here. Just terrible build.
Yes, and it's not even Army Brest. Army Brest would have been pretty good because of the convoy into Belgium possibility once Germany is in North Sea, but actually no, because the Fleet Holland is probably going to stay in Holland now, and Skagerrak is going to go to North, so that's not as effective. Um, just army here is terrible. There's nothing you can do with an army now. Your line is stuffed. You have to go. I guess actually the one thing you can do with the army is now you can use it to support hold Burgundy, so that Marseille can go Piedmont, Tyrolia, Munich.
Yep.
It's reasonable, but a fleet would have been better. Um,
Yep.
especially now that England is a problem. So, power rankings after Germany, who would you place? I think it might be me. It's either me or France, right?
Sorry. Say it one more time.
Who would you put after Germany in the power rankings? I feel like it's me, despite the weird position. Um,
Yeah, I
and
think you are likely to go to do well by the end of this game. You're
just
still Turkey.
very slowly, yeah. And then France next. Yeah, it's gotta be France next, right? Even with the terrible build. Maybe without the terrible build, they would have been above me. It's possible, but it's like they're definitely higher than Austria because Austria's on the Austria's hurting right now, and
Austria disbanded and France build, and France built. Excuse me, and France has two more units currently. And despite how terrible France's position is, how is France going to lose a center in the next 3 years?
yeah, they're not. They might lose something in England, maybe if England decides to try and throw things to Germany, but
Yeah, I
even
think the
that's
most likely
difficult.
way that France loses a center is Italy almost dies and Italy runs into Spain.
That seems like a possibility, yes. But
It's just
outside
Italy
of
doing
that,
that means Italy's dead. So
yes. Uh, so it goes Germany, Turkey, then France. Then there's a question. Well, obviously, England is worst, I would say, and then uh, Italy is second worst. I suppose you can argue between those two, but I think that's the way around it
I don't
goes.
care. They're both at the bottom.
Yeah,
Neither one of them is going to make it to the end with anything that resembles a reasonable supply count.
and
And in the scoring system in SOS, a one or two center survival at the end of the game that has anything remotely resembling a game is just going to be worth nothing. You're going to get a tiny fraction of the points,
this
so
is true.
it's essentially elimination.
One supply center
Unlike
is
some where,
usually worth zero point 0.3 points, I think, out of 100 possible. So it's like
yeah,
it's
and
nothing.
like first places in these types of scoring in SOS frequently will get more than half the pot. So they'll get something like 60 points. Not uncommon. Um,
I'd
maybe it's
say
kind of
60
uncommon.
points is definitely on the high end, but yeah, like 40 to
Yeah,
50 is definitely pretty reasonable.
yeah. I mean, they had those happen. Like, but even like in a tournament that has, let's say, 6 tables, right? You expect somebody to have like a 60-point game in
Yes.
SOS, right? So yeah, like 60 points or so, and not 0.3 points score is my argument is completely irrelevant.
Yes. It's
Right?
just for pride at that point. But yes, I would
Yep,
still put Italy above England because I think Italy has more of a chance of getting somewhere it can survive, like
I agree.
Spain. Uh, and England is definitely going down a supply center this turn, just because Germany has that nice attack on Russia. Um, and then I guess it's a case of Russia versus Austria. Who would you put ahead here? Uh,
Russia has a fleet in the Black Sea and has two in Budapest and might get into Bohemia, but he's got to contend with Germany. He's going to be walking into St. Pete. So I think I'd rather be Austria here.
I think that's very fair. It's like if status quo stayed and Germany didn't attack Russia, I feel like Russia comes out on top here. But that requires both me not to attack Russia and Germany not to attack Russia, and like Germany is definitely going to attack Russia, so
Yeah.
yep. Okay, so here are our power rankings for 1904. We've got Germany in first place. The spacing's a bit weird there, hang on. Germany in first place, Turkey in second, France in third, Austria fourth, Russia fifth, and then down at the very bottom in the elimination spots, Italy in sixth and England down there in seventh. Let's move ahead to spring 1905. And where do you want to talk about first?
So the cleanest thing is to just talk about Black Sea to Khan.
Yep.
You supported him in last turn. The plan seems pretty clearly that you want to get him through in the spring. Unclear to me if that will be successful. It seems likely, because Austria is going to try to take Naples, but maybe Adriatic Sea supports Whole Ionian anyways. So I'm worried that you will end up losing Constantinople.
Yeah, it seems like a possibility, and that would be minus a unit, which would be painful because the only unit I'd have any reason to disband would be Ankara.
And suddenly you've disbanded Ankara with the hostile fleet in Khan, with Russia getting 2 builds, because it would be Khan and Budapest. So they could build an army in Sev and an army in Moscow very reasonably. If you don't disband Ankara, it's fine, but if you do, then he takes your entire home, and then you've suddenly lost the game.
Yes.
So yeah, this is why things are terrifying. Maybe actually I don't go for Ionian here. I think to avoid that specific scenario, I must pull Aegean back to Smyrna and have Eastern Med support Khan to Aegean. I think it's painful. That's what I have to do.
That's very reasonable, yep. It's like, well, I guess, yeah, we'll see how that turns out on the next turn. But I think that's very fair. It would be incredibly painful for Turkey to go down a supply center here, which is interesting because it wouldn't have been very painful for Turkey to have lost the supply center last year and just not got the build, right?
Yes.
But
suddenly not being able to reasonably disband Eastern Med, because if you keep Ankara instead of Eastern Med, right? What they're gonna stare at you.
Yes.
Right.
Because
so I think keeping Eastern Med, supporting Khan to Aegean to Smyrna, Angst to Khan, and suddenly you're just okay. You're actually more than okay. You're probably very happy now because you're still incredibly safe. Russia gets their builds. You can disband his fleet in the south whenever you feel like it, but you probably don't even need to. You can walk into Black Sea, get your stab on him. That would be great.
Yep.
Sustainable. Okay, cool. So I think we're very happy with Turkey's position here. Nicely done, Captain Meme. Nicely done.
Yeah, and then we have, of course, Austria is probably just going to take Naples here. They go +1 on that front. I don't get the unit into Serbia, which is... Oh, actually, No, they have to, like, cut Ion, right? If they cut Ion, they've got it guaranteed, I assume.
That's true. So if you know that he's cutting Ionian, do you be hecka greedy and just support Aegean into Ionian?
There's so much potential downside, though. It's interesting.
I've been complaining about you being slow the entire game, and suddenly here I think it might be correct for you to stay hella slow.
Yeah. I mean, it is Turkey, right? The problem is that, of course, there's a fixed end date, so I ideally want to start snowballing at some point, but it's... You know, slow and steady does work as Turkey if you can... If there's no end date.
Yeah, but, like, the end date is like, again, 08 at the earliest, we expect it to go to 11, and so that's, like, 5 years from now still, right? You got 6 full years of play, so I think you've got more than enough time to stay safe here.
Yeah, and Russia should... So, Russia has Budapest guaranteed, right? They're going +1, and then Austria will stay even because they get Naples. One of the Italian fleets is going to come off, which is just good for me because there's less fleets in the south.
Yeah, by the way, I haven't even bet any order. Instead of having, like, everything is the same as what I said, but have Bulgaria support Ankara to Khan as well.
So as
just
to knock,
throw that in there.
100% knock Russia out.
Guarantee that it gets knocked out. and then clearly push it into Aegean to say this is where you're supposed to go. But like it means that if Russia's trying to be sneaky and just hold in Constantinople, he doesn't.
Yeah.
So
So
slight improvement.
I had all of these same thought processes, and you're gonna see what my decision was in the next phase. We still have to talk about the West first, but it's kind of interesting because I had very, very similar thoughts, but my solution was fairly different. Um,
Cool.
but yeah,
We can
so
look at it after the phase. We can talk about it more.
yes,
So yeah,
let's
we'll
have a
talk
look
about
in
the
the
East ad
West.
nauseum. The West is really cool because it looks like France is gonna. Excuse me. It looks like England is going to retake Eddie and stay neutral after
Yes.
gaining Liverpool.
So France actually clearly has a nicer spot here in terms of what they've managed to accomplish. They got into Piedmont, they got into North Sea. They're going to go through into Tyrolia and make the German position very awkward. Obviously, Germany gets a build from St. Petersburg, which is the downside. But then England keeping these two units on the board affects so much here. They're going to get that +1. Well, they're going to actually stay even, right? As long as Germany doesn't mess with them. And suddenly, the fact that France has made progress doesn't matter as much because France is just not going to. Well, they're going to have to disband something.
Yeah, probably Army Paris.
It might even be the army in Edinburgh, right? If they just
No,
decide I'm not going to attack England anymore.
I guess, but can you really make that claim? What's England going to do with an army in Liverpool and a fleet in Eddie?
Yeah, they're going to
Oh,
come
I know,
down
walk
onto
into
England.
Wales and walk into Yorkshire.
There's a possibility that they use it to defend against Germany, right? Because Germany is going to be in Norwegian. They're going to be
I
presumably
think in a
trying to
different
take them.
scoring system, that would be a very reasonable play here. But to maximize the score that England gets from this game, England needs to get to more than three centers. Because the difference between three centers and one center, right? It's if we just assumed it was an average of what 0.3 you said, then
Yes.
you're gonna get 9 times as much. So you're gonna get 2.7, which is still awful.
Yeah. It's you do need to get significantly more than that.
Right, so you have to get somewhere. So I think it's reasonable for England to try to retake London and then figure things out from there. Maybe they would just sit around for like a year and then hope they can start making a comeback later. It's possible, but I think it's difficult because England has so many hostile fleets around them.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I would assume that they would just disband Paris, not Eddie, is the main takeaway.
Not Piedmont. Because they lose Burgundy if they disband Paris.
I assume that Piedmont is heading into Tyrolia.
Yeah, Tyrolia is quite useful, but like losing Burgundy is so painful.
Well, the nice thing about having the army in Tyrolia is that suddenly you only lose Burgundy if they're taking it from Munich, and if they take it from Munich, then they need to use Berlin to cover Munich, and suddenly they have guesswork involved, where maybe you don't actually tap Munich this turn, and then Russia gawks into Berlin. Maybe use Tyrolia to support Silesia and Munich, and then sure you lose Burgundy, but you don't lose any centers this turn, and then Germany loses Munich to Russia. Like I think I just Tyrolia is the point of getting these extra armies out, and Paris is kind of bad.
Yeah,
Maybe Eddie is worse
that's
though.
fair.
Maybe Eddie is worse than that because Eddie, like, you don't lose Burgundy, right? If you just disband Eddie and then you can still support hold London for a while. Maybe.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision. And I guess we're gonna
Well,
see what
I
they
look at it.
decide because they're definitely gonna lose Edinburgh.
Well, if Germany doesn't tap the North Sea, then it's not a guarantee.
That's true, but
And what is
Germany.
Germany tapping the
Oh,
North Sea to?
actually,
Well,
Germany
not Skagerrak, because Skagerrak's covering Denmark, and Norwegian is going to probably be moving the North Atlantic Ocean, actually.
or cover Norway,
So,
one of the two, right?
or covering Norway, right? So maybe North Sea doesn't even get tapped. Wait a second, no, because Ruhr can now support hold Belgium while Holland taps the North Sea. You only risk losing Belgium to the North Sea. Can you take that risk as
which
Germany?
I feel like is fine because you're getting the +1 from St. Pete's anyway. So, worst case scenario, you end up in North Sea. Well,
Yeah,
you could
you
get
end up in the
bounced
North
out by
Sea.
London, in which case your army gets blown up, which and then
Yeah,
gets
but
rebuilt.
I mean, your army's going to get blown up with that move. But I think you're really happy then bouncing London out of the North Sea. I don't think you want France in there.
Yeah, that's fair. So that's a possibility tap from Holland, but it is very possible that Germany just goes super cautious and doesn't tap North Sea at all. It would
Yeah,
take a
but then
bold
France
France to
gets a
throw
really
it.
good position, actually.
You would take a bold France for France to throw a support hold from north onto Edinburgh. It's not usually bold to throw support holds onto things, but this one, North Sea is a
Yeah,
very cuttable province. Um,
yeah. In games when you're not England and other people have northern fleets, yes.
yeah. Um,
I think we should go on to the fall.
all right. Well, I'm gonna. Shall we talk about the West first and then go to the situation in the East?
Oh, in the fall.
Yeah, in the fall. Um,
Sure.
Okay, so England does take Edinburgh back. North Sea did try and support hold Edinburgh, and you're absolutely right that Holland decides to tap it. Ends up being the right move for Germany there, because obviously they do want to see France as weak as possible. And Germany gets St. Petersburg, so they're going to be going +1 here, while France goes -1. Very nice for them. Uh,
Okay. Good West. East. You decide to dot your ally.
yeah. So this was I went through exactly the same thought process as you went through. If I lose Constantinople, I am losing a center, right? Um, I was thinking I can offset that by just walking into Romania because he's not going to be covering Romania and he's going to be getting Budapest and I'm tapping Trieste, so there's a possibility that he gets Vienna as well. Um, Plus, he could always stay in Constantinople, so there's a decent possibility he gets a build regardless. But I was very much hoping Russia needs to get the build out of this anyway.
Okay.
I'm not sure how reasonable that is. I feel like this still is just a stab when you look at it in retrospect. It's
Yep.
not like yeah.
Yeah, this tells me you're trying to win this game.
Yeah. It's not so much about offsetting in that case as it is just about, you know, winning.
Yeah, the problem is that like you had the move that I was suggesting where you just used Bulgaria to support Ankara and Takan.
Yep, and then move back into Smyrna, I guess, just to cover the
Yep.
against. And also, I didn't even go for Ionian. Going for Ionian will probably make this make a lot more sense. I instead went for the safe move and went to Greece, right? Um, which, yeah. So,
Yeah. And then you didn't move into Black Sea either.
yeah, the not moving into Black Sea is like some indication that I wasn't completely anti-Russia.
I
And
mean, makes me think you just weren't playing well there.
yeah, in retrospect,
Because
I
this
feel
looks
like
like you're supposed to go to the Black Sea, take Romania. He has to disband something. He's going to disband Silesia probably, but you still build an army in
he
Ankara. You
doesn't
convoy it to Sev.
go -1 because he gets Budapest.
That's true. Still, you get the convoy into Sev because he doesn't build, and you're suddenly just crushing Russia.
Yes,
Um, I just wasn't thinking about the stab here. Maybe the stab was the best move, actually.
I don't know
Go
because
hard.
like the problem is that Germany just walks into St. Petersburg, right? And if I don't stab here, then Russia gets a build and is able to fend that unit off. If I do stab, it's just a free walk for Germany into Moscow.
Yep,
And Germany is already winning the war in the West. So this is
yep.
where Summer Squares especially comes in very important in that in a standard supply center based system, it's fine to sort of stab for more supply centers, but because it's sum of squares, I should really be looking at the other side of the board and thinking, how does this impact what's going on there? um, but yeah, uh, so yeah, this is what happens. Russia is not going to get a build, which means Germany is going to get a free walk into Moscow. But on the plus side for me, I've got Albania, Serbia, Romania, which is not a bad spot to be in. And the
Yeah,
Russian
what's your
fleet is
build
out
though?
of con.
So you're gonna build another fleet Smyrna?
It's an interesting move, right? You do wonder. I can't actually remember what I built from here, so I guess I'll be interested to see. Uh, the rest of the East is very standard. You just have Naples being kicked out as expected. I could have absolutely taken Ionian here. I did not. And then yeah, we've spoken about the West. There's not really that much more to say about this, right?
Yep. Okay, let's go to the winter.
Yeah, winter 1905. What do I build? I build Army Smyrna. I feel like that's probably the best move here, just because it is some kind of attack on Sevastopol. You kind of have to at this point, right? Because Germany is going to be in Moscow. Yeah.
Wow.
What are you thinking at the moment?
Thinking your position sucks.
Yeah. Um, it's an interesting one. It's
Because you're not
certainly
gonna hold your Austrian centers, right?
against. Well, you mean the Balkan ones, Serbia and Romania?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Serbia, Romania, Greece. They're all gonna fall pretty soon.
they could absolutely just turn around, and take them off me right now.
Right? Adriatic is just gonna support Trieste into Albania. I mean, maybe. Yeah, this is where gunboat makes your life a lot easier because in all chat, I'm pretty sure that Russia and Austria are just immediately going to work their differences out and then just crush you. But
Yes.
in gunboat, maybe they can't make it happen cleanly enough, and Austria is stuck out of position, so you can actually just take Sevastopol and take Budapest. Maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult for them to disentangle just because it is gunboat. Right? If
Yeah.
Russia goes for Romania, they're relying on a tap on Serbia, which might not be happening. And if they do go for it and don't throw the support hold on Budapest, Austria could just crush Budapest.
Well, that seems. I don't think Austria can attack Budapest here because I believe that Austria needs to support hold Trieste.
Yes, that's true. There's Albania and Serbia.
So
It
it's
depends
like they can
whether I'm
only attack
supporting
from
hold
Vienna.
Romania, right? Um, I don't think it's worth me support holding Romania in any case, though, because I would just go to Ukraine if I get dislodged, or into Bulgaria if I'm being cowardly. um, so yeah, the Fleet Aegean is going to be an interesting one to deal with, but it's less painful than Fleet Black Sea in any case. So the other build was Fleet Keel, which is kind of reasonable fighting France. You
Yep.
do need the fleets to get out there.
When the North Sea is the most important territory in the war, then you
Got to build
gotta
those
build fleets.
fleets. Yes. Shall we go ahead to the spring?
Yeah, I want to just point out Army Tyrolia was a disband instead of Army Paris
Yes, that's
or
true.
Army Yorkshire.
France playing very defensively. Uh, I don't know. Yorkshire would have been a defensive disband to some extent as well. They're playing offensively in England, I guess, and defensively at home, which I don't think is going to work. You can't get enough units on anything in the English in the English homeland to take it without giving up too much to Germany. So,
Wow. Now look, I went ahead to the next moves.
okay, well, let's go ahead to spring 1906. Here we go. Was the wow about Russia, or
Yeah, Russia didn't even try to defend against you or Germany.
yeah, they're just like, nope, I'm going all out in front. Um, yeah, it's an interesting.
I mean, not going to be great for them. So, okay.
It's better than it could have been, right? Because I actually played fairly slowly and defensively here as well, but also pretty pro-Russian in the sense of leaving Romania completely open. Um,
And not going for Budapest. Yep.
yeah, exactly. Just trying to keep myself aligned with the Russian at this point.
Yeah, so now you get to disband his fleet, which is also great. And you only really need to use 2 units to do it, right? Just the Aegean supports Khan to Bull, which is nice. And then Eastern Med can be supported into Ionian by Greece. So your position suddenly smooths itself out dramatically here.
Yes. There's the
You also get to support yourself into Romania. Yeah, this is looking really, really good for you now. I like this turn a lot.
yes. It's all reliant on the Russian not being angry about my take of Romania here, which I think was definitely more likely than not that he was angry. Um,
Yeah,
so
but you read it right. So, I mean, that's just great moves.
yeah, it worked out. I'm not sure I read it right so much as like because I wasn't I read the situation wrongly in taking Romania in the first place, in that I thought he would get a build regardless. But
I mean, look,
successfully,
you're able to dot your ally and he didn't attack you for it. That's perfect.
yeah, that's always nice. But yeah, and then I mean, I can take Ionian regardless because 2 units. Um,
Yep, Austria and Italy would need to coordinate to stop it, which is not going to happen. I mean, Bulgaria can cut Greece, I suppose, just as a last FU.
yeah, that's very possible. So yeah,
In
that's
the north,
basically
the
what happens in
west,
the east.
Germany takes the North Sea, is the big one.
Yeah, and France. I mean, they're trying for Belgium, but really, if you're trying for Belgium here, you want to be cutting Ruhr, because Burgundy
Yes.
is never going to be. Well, actually, it's guesswork between whether Germany is supporting into Burgundy or defending Belgium. So I shouldn't say that you have to cut Ruhr. Uh, they could absolutely have got it right here but if Ruhr had supported Munich to Burgundy. But they guessed wrong, 50-50. And
Yeah,
now
if your goal
Germany's
was
spot
only
is
to take
nice.
Belgium, then cutting Ruhr was better.
Yes, but then you could lose Burgundy, which is
Yep.
painful. Um,
But I think you're guaranteed to take Belgium, right, if you cut Ruhr.
yeah, actually, could they have just cut Holland from North Sea and then gone in from somewhere else for a better?
The place would have had to have been Burgundy to add any value to it, and that has the same fundamental guess.
Yeah, except it's slightly worse if they get. Well, it's much worse if they get into Burgundy because then suddenly you lose Marseille. So
Yep,
yeah,
I think Burgundy cutting Ruhr was just correct here because you're super likely to disband the army in Belgium, and then like you're sitting pretty. Like obviously you wish you had more fleets, but this is the position we've gotten ourselves into from years of not building fleets.
yeah.
Also, Italy is going to end up in Spain this game. I can feel it.
There's not enough on the defense back there, yeah, and France really can't afford to bring anything back. That unit in Yorkshire is basically showing how bad it was to keep it on the border right now because it's not going to do anything. With the fleet having to retreat to London, that's where the defense of London comes from anyway. So Yorkshire just is going to annoy the English player and stop them fighting against the German. um,
I
but
think
yeah,
Army Yorkshire is very bad.
yeah, So it's all looking very nice for Germany here, with taking Moscow as well. Uh, shall we move ahead to the fall?
Sounds good.
All right. Fall 1906.
Nice. You didn't tap Moscow.
I
Whatever.
I don't think there's much advantage to tapping Moscow here, right?
Better to move units than hold. What if Moscow moves to Warsaw, Sevastopol takes Moscow, and then it's easier to retake Sev?
That would make sense. Yeah, I probably should have just tapped. I
Anyways,
don't
it's
remember why
completely
I
irrelevant. What
didn't.
did the milking
But
here?
yeah.
So Russia was really big sad. By moving Galicia, they didn't support hold Vienna, and so they they covered Warsaw. So if Germany had taken Warsaw, they would have vacated Moscow. So there's very little reason to cover Warsaw anyways. And then they had Silesia, which I think it's fair to take a shot, because they guessed right, they might have taken Berlin here. But then there's just no reason to cover Warsaw here, just cover Vienna.
Yes. I,
Just very sad.
I remember being a bit annoyed about this at the time, just thinking, Russia, why would you do that?
And
Yeah.
then if they're supporting Vienna, it's pretty plausible that Vienna ends up just supporting Albania to Trieste, and then they retreat into Budapest. And then Russia still loses a center.
Yeah. I do wonder whether it might have been in my best interest here to leave them Bulgaria, because they almost certainly take the fleet off regardless. But I guess I didn't know that they were going to, not cover themselves in in Austria.
Yep, even still, right? So Russia currently is down 2 dots this year.
Yeah, they're gonna have 2 units left. So they could have kept all 3 armies on if I had left them Bulgaria. They're probably just gonna keep. Well, they have to keep two
Oh my
armies
god,
on
but
instead.
Italy guessed correctly. Italy's in Naples.
Oh, Italy is, but they don't get a build.
No, they don't get a build, but now they're on 2, and they're not in Tyrrhenian, so you just walk into Tunis. That's amazingly good for you.
This is true. Everything just works out through no fault of my own, no skill of my own, rather.
You get your build. Maybe you just convoy into Apulia.
It seems plausible. I'm fairly sure that went through my head.
Yeah, so we're gonna build in Con. Maybe I know we build in Smyrna no matter what. I think they're very similar, but I'd probably build in Smyrna in army, and then I see what the disband is. If Austria disbands, um, an army, I don't know.
Austria should disband Adriatic, I feel like. It's the most cuttable unit there, right? At this point, they're not going to stop the fleets that are coming in from the south, so they probably just want to turtle up with what they can.
My feeling about keeping Adriatic is they don't want you to get your fleet into Adriatic. Because if they disband Adriatic, right, I think you're just going to walk in there from Ionian, and then Aegean supports Greece to Ionian, and now they're still cooked.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
keeping that fleet is annoying to body block you. Like their position is kind of just not looking good anymore. And you're gonna have to kill Budapest. You top this board, don't you?
We will see. But yes, the looking at it that way, I think actually the best Austrian disband is probably Rome, right? Because you can bounce it from Venice anyway, and then keep your other
Yes.
3.
Yeah, probably. It sucks because you kind of need to be bouncing it. So like Venice versus Rome are both pretty equivalent disbands. But maybe I think Rome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you just
Venice
have to make
technically
sure
has
you
more
keep the other
options.
2. And then hope that Russia comes on your side at some point. But you're probably more hoping for the end date to just be in 1908.
For Austria, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and then on the west side of the board, Germany makes progress, right? France goes for that attack on Belgium that isn't guaranteed. So the turn where they
Not after
needed
losing
to,
English Channel.
yeah, they the turn where they needed to not play it safe was last turn, right, where they needed to cut Ruhr and then risk Burgundy going. And then this turn they don't play it safe when they don't have the guarantee of taking it.
I
which
mean,
is
Germany's just like nailed all of these guesses, right? And just crushed. So
absolutely. They guessed correctly on Cilicia as well, where that goes. And yeah, they get into North and Norwegian. It's just a beautiful position. And here we see that irritating French unit in Wales for England, stopping them getting back into Liverpool. And if England is in Liverpool here, they probably just support Hold Edinburgh against the German. As is now, they have to make a hard decision of, do I continue defending against France or defend against Germany? And I feel like as this England, you choose to defend against France because you're like, Liverpool is the best centre for me to live in.
yeah, I don't think it matters. I don't care if I'm England. Like,
Because it's summer squares. Or, uh,
yeah,
I think there's some. Well, okay, so something that hasn't been mentioned here. You get paid for your time for this tournament, right? So if you survive in the game longer, you do end up getting paid more.
I didn't know that you got paid for your time not eliminated. Okay, yeah. In that case, surviving for longer is a huge upside. Get paid to
Yes.
make moves every 5 minutes, just surf the internet for the rest. I like it.
Yeah.
Man, why do I live in California?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, this is the West is suddenly incredible for Germany. I mean, it was already very good for Germany, but now it's just beautiful. They do only go +1 here, but like that's enough to put an army in Munich, and that's pretty damn nice all around. So yeah, shall we go to the winter?
Yep.
All right. Winter '06, Army Smyrna build, just in case of the potential to convoy to Apulia, I guess, or to go up to Sevastopol. Actually, no, I think that one's better going up to Sevastopol, right? Then you convoy into from Albania if you are convoying. And then Army Munich. And Army
Good
Rome and
builds.
Army Salisbury.
Silesia is off.
Yep.
Rome's off. Makes sense. All right. So power rankings, right? You're number one. Germany is number two. France is number three. Austria is four. Everybody else is last.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm thinking, yeah, who is most likely to survive out of Italy, Russia, and England? This is an interesting
None of them.
question.
I think
Um,
England is the most likely.
I would agree with that. Yes, Liverpool
Then
feels like
Italy. Then
it's
Russia.
in a nice spot. Russia is in a very painful spot right now. Right, so that's our power rankings. Very quick ones this time around. Turkey first, Germany second, France third, Austria fourth, England fifth, Italy, and then Russia at the bottom. Let's go to the spring of 1907 here. See the beautiful cross support from Warsaw and Sevastopol. Yeah, and then the very, very bad communication between me and Russia here, especially combined with Serbia, Russia attempting to support Serbia into Trieste and me going in from Albania. Yeah, but I do get Tunis in the south. Yeah.
Yeah, Tunis, Ionian. Your position is still very nice.
It's kind of a race
Very
between
nice.
me and Germany, it feels like at this point, right?
Kind of, except it's not. It doesn't seem like much of a race. It is definitely a race between the two of you still. I think that's fair. And France playing the way that France is, maybe it actually will be a competition between the two of you. I just assumed that France is going to put up a fight, but no. Here, Germany is going to take Warsaw. Maybe, hopefully, Russia realizes Warsaw is lost and will then take your support into Moscow.
Yeah, that's the painful part is now because Russia didn't go into Moscow here and I didn't go into Moscow. It's now a guess, I think. because Germany
Yep.
can support Moscow through to Warsaw.
Yep. But I would bet against that happening.
Yeah, because if that actually goes and I go into Moscow, that leaves Germany in a really awkward spot in regards to St. Petersburg. So,
Yep. That's not happening. But it sucks that your army in Armenia is now wasted this turn. Would have been, if we'd known this was going to be the position, he would have rather moved it into Khan than into Bull. I mean, he would have rather built it in Khan, then moved it to Bull, and then from Bull to Rum.
yep.
Because now it's just going to sit and hold in Armenia on the off chance that Russia moves to Moscow. But we supported him in last turn. Like, Warsaw's clearly getting cut, so I think it's a reasonable. I think it's a good guess. But what, do we take Budapest here? That's rough. Nah, Germany's position is great. Like, Germany's not going to make many gains in the West. But they don't have to make many. They just have to get enough.
Yeah, and it all depends what time the game will end, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, you want this game to go pretty long, because your long-term prospects are better.
It sure seems it, from my perspective at least. And I am wondering, the way that France is playing this game, like, they support north into Belgium, which is interesting. It's like saying, can you please back out? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the point of this support is. It's just saying maybe, let's be friends again. But then they also attack North at the same time, which is kind of like definitely not friendly. So
Yeah, it's a whatever. He was trying to do some nonsense.
yep. And then
Want to go to the fall?
yeah, absolutely. Let's go. So fall 1907.
Russia accepts the support. Ooh, Russia even supports you at a Trieste. Nice. Good
Yeah,
cut. Yep. So you go +2. Germany goes +1. Gaining Warsaw, gaining Eddie, losing Moscow. France is gonna lose Portugal. England's gonna yoink it.
France has English channels, so they can block that, right?
But he's not.
But yeah, it's if England yoinks Portugal, it's gonna be interesting.
England's gonna survive for England's gonna survive. We said England was the most likely to survive, so
Yes,
I think
that's
fair.
true.
But yeah, so you get two builds. What, Army Smyrna, Army Khan, and then you convoy into Apulia and move into Bulgaria, move into Ukraine, move into Sevastopol, move into Galicia. Yeah, I mean, this is just good. Good position, good fight. Let's see it.
Yeah. I mean, that is. I guess there's not really much else to talk about in this position, right? Apart from actually managing to get Trieste here. The Italian trying to get into Rome to get the build. They're still putting up a fight there, but it's not gonna.
I think it's the best move.
Yeah, I mean, of the one that they have, it's like
No, they can move into Apulia, Rome, Pyrenean Sea, or Ionian Sea.
Yes, yeah, it's absolutely correct. Yeah. So sorry. Let's go ahead to the winter here. This might be a quick few phases then. Germany builds Army Kiel, which is an odd one for sure.
Yeah, I think Army Munich is better here.
I think Army Munich is just definitely better. It's like, and I
Where is
remember
Kiel going? Holland? No. Berlin? Munich does that. Munich does that. Denmark? Maybe you can convoy it into England. Okay, that's fair. That's the argument. If he goes Kiel to Denmark and then Denmark gets convoyed into Yorkshire, I think there's a fair argument that this was the correct build.
Yeah,
But
actually, that makes sense.
I assume you'd rather use it on the stalemate line, keep Austria propped up in Vienna and Venice while you to clog up your main rival in Turkey, and then you just live.
I remember being confused by Kiel at the time. I think I took it as a sign that maybe he was just going for non-aggression with me. And saying, do your own thing. But actually, the Denmark thing makes a lot more sense. And, that might be what happens here. I forget.
Sure.
So,
But yeah,
Yeah,
in the meantime, do you go after Western Med or do you go after Tyrrhenian Sea?
it's interesting choices. It's like,
But
well,
you built a fleet Smyrna. You have to go after Western Med then. Man, we can bounce you in Ionian or Tyrrhenian. That's annoying. Meme, why did you build another fleet here? Why not just build more armies?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think I was thinking I was bottlenecked with the armies, but
I mean, the army in Smyrna gets convoyed, and the army in Khan moves to Bulgaria, and you need another army in Bulgaria because Armenia moves to Galicia, and then Bulgaria
yeah,
goes
but
back to Armenia.
if you convoy army Smyrna, right, then
Yeah,
I didn't leave a unit that in a position that could be convoyed to Apulia. Um,
but that's Smyrna.
Actually, yeah, sorry, that would be Smyrna. Uh, I, if I recall correctly, I think I end up using the fleets in the way that I should have used the army in any case. So, like,
Oh, you like move Ionian to Apulia, and then Tunis supports Aegean to Ionian, and then Smyrna to Aegean.
something similar to that, yeah. But
Nice.
so really, I should have just built an army there. That would have
Okay.
just been that was just an error.
As long as you're not
Um,
convoying Constantinople out, and Constantinople is getting to Bulgaria, that's really the important part. Because we need to fill into Galicia, Ukraine, and Sevastopol to get our as much pressure on the Stamy line as possible, and then hope that we can like bust into Warsaw.
yeah, I agreed. Shall
So
we
you
go
can do the
ahead to
important
this
part.
one?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, and just yeah, I did remember correctly there. So I don't move into
Okay,
Apulia, but
that's
I
a little
go
different.
to Adriatic, and then Ionian, Tyrrhenian, and Aegean, and other interesting fleet movements on the board. This
Yeah,
North
not
Atlantic
enough.
Ocean into Mid Atlantic Ocean. You are absolutely correct that France did not block that. I don't know why France didn't block that,
He
especially
thought he was going to
considering.
cover Liverpool.
Yeah, but like surely the Mid Atlantic Ocean, the downside of them being Mid Atlantic Ocean far outweighs the upside of going to Irish Sea if
Oh
they
yeah, no,
pull
he
up.
clearly just didn't consider him moving to Mid-Atlantic Ocean because he just looked at the fleet North Atlantic Ocean and said, "Oh, that's going to Liverpool," and then didn't think about the rest.
Yep. But yeah, but yes,
Okay.
and that Kiel unit moves up to Denmark to get convoyed. And you called, I think, every move in this area correctly. Me and Russia failed to coordinate on Vienna. I'm not sure it's actually in Russia's best interest to support me into Vienna in any case. That feels like,
I mean, I think Russia at this point's been throwing to you for a couple turns now and just not doing it particularly well. So I think
yeah,
this is fine.
it seems that way. They're very, they're like either full vassal with me or like at least they're very friendly.
You take Venice, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, because I can cut Rome and then support Trieste through. That would absolutely work. As long as something cuts Vienna, but I can do that with Galicia if I really want to. I think
I
I'm.
wouldn't even do it. I think Russia's going to tap it again.
Yeah,
And also, that would require what? Vienna to support Venice into Trieste again? I suppose that's plausible.
it seems more likely they'll do like Vienna tap Trieste to try and block
Oh,
a
maybe you go after
backfill.
Naples, though. I think Naples is better. So I think you have Tyrrhenian Sea support Ionian to Naples, and then Adriatic support Trieste to Venice.
Oh, and then one of
So
them
now,
goes. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
exactly.
I'm
Like
really
again,
hoping
let's say do the
past me
same in
is smart
Vienna.
enough to have spotted that. Because I don't actually remember. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
but yeah, so
And
in the
then, do
north,
you take Budapest?
is there
I would take. I would be really tempted to take Budapest at the same time.
what
Have
with?
Romania support or have Galicia support Serbia to Budapest, while Bulgaria moves to Romania. If we take Venice, then Budapest retreats to Trieste, and we're super happy with that move. We keep our position moving north while our fleets conquer the south. I like that. I like that a lot. And then we have Ukraine and Sev support hold Moscow.
It certainly feels better than leaving a Russian unit behind the lines, right?
Yep.
Um,
The alternative would be moving Galicia into Bohemia or Silesia or something.
yeah, because
I
Cilicia
kind of
is
like the move to Bohemia, but I don't think it actually gets you anywhere. I think we're not. pushing through the line in Germany.
Silesia is almost certainly moving to Warsaw here, right? I mean,
Seems plausible, right? So if you don't stop that from happening, then you just end up in Silesia, and then you're pretty happy.
yeah. Um, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't know. There's tactics. It's a game.
so in the north as well, France loses Picardy. So they are getting beaten back, but they are France, so they're not getting beaten back very quickly here.
Yeah, where do they go from here, right? Like, there's a guess every turn on Paris slash Gascony slash Marseille.
Yep. And there's a turkey
France
bearing
isn't
down.
losing London this year, and so even though France is losing Portugal, France is keeping Liverpool. France is gaining Liverpool, so France is neutral. Um, like I don't know. Yeah, France is dying incredibly slowly.
Yeah. I So that's an interesting question here, right? Because do you just peace out France because you're not going to make any progress against them? Or do you keep on pushing and hope that the game ends
As
before
Germany,
Turkey gets a solo shot? Yeah.
um, so there's no real cost, I think, to Germany hitting France for a little bit longer because Germany can pull back into Munich and Berlin, and they are holding Warsaw. Okay, there is a slight risk. The risk being that you can get into Silesia and he can lose Warsaw and Moscow, and then you're pretty sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in SOS he really wants to keep you at like 13 because 11 to 13 you both are getting 50% of the pot. Like you're getting more than that, but you're pretty much splitting it evenly. But if you get up to 15, then suddenly his 11 is worth nothing.
I mean, it's still worth a pretty substantial amount, I think. It will be like 30, maybe. Um, but,
Sure. But like he loses like 20 points in those and you gaining those two dots.
yes.
Right? Like 13 to 11 versus 15 to 11 is a radical difference.
I... Yeah. Shall we move ahead to the fall? And see what Germany
Yeah.
does do? Um, Here we have Germany continuing to attack France. So you're you're right on that front. Um,
Yeah.
so
Man,
interesting. Yeah, I did not spot the Naples thing. I absolutely should have spotted the Naples thing.
yeah, and then you gain Naples, and then you're gonna get Rome next year because you're already in Venice. So you just like get all of them, and then you're gonna be at 11, 12. So you'd be at 12 this year, getting two builds. You gain Budapest, Vienna, and Rome next year. So you'd be at 12 plus 3 for 15. Yeah, maybe Germany needed to make peace immediately and then go and hold Vienna to keep you at 14. Well, do you solo this? Because you can easily solo this game, right?
Seems possible. It's like
Nah, no, you can't. Not with that because I think you're not quite fast enough to Iberia. I think Ionian going into Apulia instead of you magically finding a way into the west is gonna stall out too much.
mm,
Right?
yeah,
Even in gunboat, England, France and Germany are gonna make their stalemate line with England. So
it also doesn't actually need to be a stalemate. It just needs to be a, hold out until the clock goes, right? Um,
true.
and I'm not
Again, I think
really.
they're literally gonna get the stalemate though. So I think that's not gonna.
Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, but yeah, also, Russia didn't actually tap Vienna here. They tried to support me up. So the moveset that I chose could have actually gotten me nothing if Vienna had supported Venice to Trieste here, um, which would have been
That would have
painful.
been really sad.
Yep. But thankfully,
Well,
that did not happen. Instead, just kept Germany out of Silesia. The German convoy here, I feel like, is really bad. It's nice. It would be, it's more likely to work than trying to convoy into Yorkshire. And clearly, they're trying to bait the French unit out into Yorkshire, so England keeps the supply centre there, I guess. But Army Clyde can't do anything right now. It's just kind of stuck there behind Army Liverpool. You can get Norwegian to North Atlantic, but then if you were gonna do that, you should have just done that this turn and convoyed to Yorkshire, and then you're already there, right? But yeah,
I don't like convoying into Clyde.
it can work as Russia, I think. But here is not.
Yeah. In this context, I don't like the convoy into Clyde.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it should be clarified that usually we say having an army in England is the best way to take England, because it is. It's far better to have an army there than, say, Fleet Edinburgh, for example. That's really bad against Army Liverpool. But Army Clyde doesn't do anything that a fleet can't do, because everything adjacent to Clyde is adjacent by coast. So, now that we've talked about stuff that doesn't really need to be talked about on that front, is there anything else you want to discuss here, or should we move forward?
It was fine. I mean, like, your position's great. Like, I think our power rankings were great from last time, and we're just gonna keep watching the grind. Like, the long Turkish grind.
Yeah. If we move forward to winter here, so here are the builds. I think the power rankings do actually stay exactly the same. Maybe there would be some jumping around between the other powers, because England is much more likely to stay on the stalemate line than Austria. So I guess England moves above Austria, and maybe Russia moves above Austria and Italy too. But really, that would be the only difference. It's still Turkey, Germany, France at the top, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, let's go. Let's look at spring, eh?
Okay. I've just rearranged those bottom four powers. Let's go to spring 1909 here.
Ooh, you got into Berlin. That's so fun. Like, they move into Silesia, right? No one's next to Berlin. So that's how you just break the stalemate line, because Germany overcommitted against France.
Yep. I think this was a huge mistake by Germany, right? Not turning around here.
Yeah, I think last turn it was very conceivably correct to just turn and fight because of SOS, and we needed to stop you from getting to 15. But he didn't, and this was clearly wrong because he just let you kill him. So you're gonna solo now.
Yeah.
Nice game.
The move into Berlin, yeah, definitely helps against the stalemate line. And it's like, there's nothing even close to defend the homeland once I've gotten into Berlin. They have to turn tail right now, and it's like there's nothing that can get there.
You can walk into Berlin, right? And assuming they go full tilt, maybe they can stop you there. But like, you've already got Tunis, right? You don't need. Yeah, you can get to 17 easily just by taking Warsaw and Moscow and everything else that's naturally yours without Berlin. So with Berlin, it's easy for you to hold Munich. They're not going to break you in the south with fleet. So Munich, like, I don't know, it's a good solo. Nice. In the west, we see Germany, right, just keep pushing his units west. He's set to take Paris. Congratulations, Germany. You're going to get another center. Good for you. I hope you're happy. But you got to keep your eye on the prize, guys. This is not...
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because Germany could... Well, this is almost certainly going to make Germany go down in points because they're losing centres to the board leader. And even though they're gaining something else of France, there's just not that... That doesn't work in summer squares. But... Yeah, in a centre-based system, I can maybe see it if you're just hoping that the game ends in 1909. Try and
something
run for
where
this.
you can just get a few extra dots, and then you stop the solo, but so they get a few extra points, but you get a few extra points. Your scores are entirely independent of everybody else's. This can make play, but in SOS, it's just terrible, and it's still gonna it risks the literal solo, which is just terrifying.
Yeah, I should clarify, in Summer Squares, a solo is worth 100 points to the winner and 0 to everyone else, regardless of center count, so yeah, that's not good. Yeah, here I've gotten Naples and Rome, and the army in Apulia is not that useful. I can cover against it with most things. So, yeah, shall we move ahead to the fall?
Let's do it. Let's want
All
a
right.
rather faster grind now. I don't even know if it's able to call it a grind.
Yeah.
This is more of a zoom. Wow. Rome, Naples, Vienna, Berlin, and Warsaw. Okay, cool.
It's that
Budapest is
was
still there.
an insane turn. The only downside to which is that, yes, Budapest is still in place, so I have to figure out a way to take that. But maybe I don't even have to figure out a way to take that because, I'm getting centers
Germany's not
elsewhere.
defending themselves. Maybe you win by taking Kiel and Munich.
Germany does get a build here. Like,
Yep.
they
Look
managed.
at, so you can get into Tyrolia, Bohemia, and Silesia next turn with your army already in Berlin, right? That's not using that army. So Berlin taps with whatever they build, let's say Munich, and then you just have enough units you can just take the other. Like,
Yeah.
oh, excuse me, you can't quick into Tyrolia? Forgive me, because you have to fleet in Venice, not an army. So Venice cannot move to Tyrolia. So Vienna moves to Bohemia and Warsaw moves to Silesia only. Excuse me, I misled our listening audience. But in the meantime, hey, look, you might take Spain. You
Yeah.
might take Marseille. Yeah, I mean, this is the hella fun.
It's
In the
it's
West, yeah,
very.
Germany takes some centers.
I feel like I up to this, like, certainly at the start I was playing quite badly, and then things fell suddenly into my favor here quite
Yes,
considerably. Majorly because Germany didn't turn around right here. Uh,
I mean, yeah, last turn, this turn, like doesn't really like
any
they should have
turn.
turned around earlier, but they didn't, so they are all cooked.
Yeah. Shall we move ahead to the winter?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, let's
Okay.
watch you waste the build because you can't use it. Build a whole bunch of armies, push to the fronts,
Yeah.
and then
And then, so spring 1909. I do think this is
interesting.
kind of interesting in that Russia actually walks into Vienna in the spring. So I have an interesting problem here in that I have to use two of my armies to take back anything there, potentially, if I want to guarantee that I keep both of those. Or I could have walked straight forward. Um, I'm trying to remember why I moved to Galicia here. I don't know that that's a good approach. I think it's
Seems
just
worse
in case
to
Warsaw goes.
Bohemia.
Mm. Yeah, I think I did it instead of moving to Bohemia because I went Warsaw into Cilicia, right? Instead, and then I wanted to cover against a potential attack on Warsaw from Moscow. But it's probably better just to line up units on Munich. I'm not sure.
I think so because if you lose Warsaw, you can still recapture it. Whereas if you lose Munich, it's going to be far more like once you take Munich, it's the stalemate line. So
Yeah.
my feeling is just always take the stalemate line and figure it out later.
Thing is, it is a race against time for a solo here because the game could time out at any point, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. And if you're trying to go just as fast as possible, then maybe you can't afford to lose anything. Yeah, like I'm not used to these weird time limits where like it's variable. Right, these unclear endings. I don't know.
yeah, it's certainly difficult. But yes, we also see some interesting decisions from the German in still continuing to attack France. They're going around to get Liverpool now. And I guess it kind of makes sense because if you've gone this hard on France now already, you're kind of hoping for the time limit to go so that you can you can cash in on your points. You might
You've
as well
already
take as
thrown
much.
the solo, so really, why does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't massively matter at that point. It's like if it doesn't time out soon enough, it's gonna be a solo regardless. So yeah, anything specific here, or do you want to go to the fall?
I just want to click through to the end of the game at this point, and just see does it end or do you solo.
I think there's a couple of interesting things that happened in the meantime, mainly related to whether it was correct to do certain things or not. But, like, for me, it was all about what is going on with that Russian unit in Budapest. Because in fall 1910 here, we have the Russian unit going back to Budapest. I just ignore it and keep going forward. Because I'm thinking...
I think that's great.
Yeah. Galicia kind of needs to cover Warsaw just in case. And you can't guarantee anything with Trieste on its own.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's the problem of how do you get Budapest from this position.
I mean, you have units coming up, right? Like, look, we've got a unit in Serbia and Bulgaria now. So in the spring, we can do something like Galicia support Serbia to Budapest and Bulgaria to Serbia. And then if it retreats to Vienna, then you kick it out. If it retreats to Trieste, you kick it out. Although Trieste is not going to want because then Venice exists. So maybe you just take Ionia and move Ionia back to Adriatic to cover Venice from the potential retreat.
Yeah, so here's where I think I made a massive mistake with what I did with Adriatic in fall 1910.
You wanted to keep it in Adriatic to cover the retreat to Trieste?
Should have absolutely been. I think I was just clicking through and going, okay, what do I need to do? If you're soloing or trying to solo, you need to move everything to the west, right? All the fleets. But this fleet is not going to get there.
You're in a 5-minute game with whatever 15 orders you got to put in. So it just takes time to literally write everything out. And unlike in the in-person games when you've got 15 minutes, you only have 5 minutes of phase here.
Yes.
So I think it's reasonable to literally run out of time.
Yeah. Although Germany has gotten into a position where they could potentially retake Berlin at this point.
Yep.
It's feasible.
It's risky, right? Because there's still guesses on Munich. And you've also got huge pressure on Spain and Marseille. So it's, I think, really guesswork for Germany to hold the line here even. And you'd only need to win one guess to then just get it. So, yeah, let's go to the spring.
Alright, well, we have to go through me building meaningless units in the winter, and then spring 1911 here. I don't...
No, Russia makes your life much easier. He just retreats into Vienna.
Yeah, he walks into Vienna even. I don't know whether
you didn't double support yourself into Munich. Very sad.
No, so my thought was here, if I get dislodged from Berlin, I can tap Livonia and take Moscow, right?
Yeah, sure. That seems fun. And then plus you get... Wait, am I crazy? Wow, I completely forgot the stamina line that you can have Tunis, and if Tunis, Warsaw, and Moscow, and everything to the southeast, that's 18.
That's I would need...
I just thought that was only 17.
I would need Marseille or Spain, but I think they were...
Tunis, Budapest... Yeah, it is only 17. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're going to get Marseille or Spain, so you're going to be fine.
Yes.
And let's get Marseille in the spring, so you're probably going to get Spain in the fall. And see how that works.
Interestingly, England isn't throwing support holds on Spain. I don't know why that was, but France at this point, I think he said in the post-game chat, he was just fed up with Germany taking everything in the north. So, just decided to throw Marseille. Because he could.
The convoy to Norway is a nice touch. Looks like he's going to cut St. Pete for you.
Yeah. And then if we go through to the fall, that is, he throws Spain away as well, and walks into Holland. And Russia walks out of Vienna to Bohemia, just to top that off. So, yeah, this is how it ends. Germany just overextending, continuing to attack France for a bit too long. And
so was the bot Germany in this game?
No, the bot was Austria. You were 100% correct with your initial guess, which is why I didn't talk about it again, because, you're too good at this. But yeah, interestingly, so this is not a great first game for the bot, that you're seeing for the bot, but the bot at this point in the tournament is winning. It has the highest score of anyone.
Well, I mean, it's gonna have the highest flat score because it's playing in every game, right? What
Yeah.
matters is the highest average score.
So the way it's scored is oh man. It's like average, but instead of divided by the number of games, it's divided by the number of games plus 3, just to encourage people to play more games. So my solo here, instead of bringing me to 100 points, brings me to 25 because it's divided by
It's one
4
game
total.
divided by four, sure. But like
Yeah.
once you play more games, right? Even if you get literally 0 points in the next game, what
Yeah,
happens to your
I could
score?
get
It's
0
not that
points in the
bad.
next 3, and I think I'd still be alright. Um, I'd still have 25 points if I scored 0 continuously for the next 3 games.
So if you scored zero in the next game, you'd have 20 points, right? But it
Uh,
only cost you 5 points,
Actually, yeah, that's correct. I'm bad at
right?
maths.
And then the next one, it's going to be 100 divided by 6. But like, let's say you'd gotten like 20 points in the next game, though. Then it's 120 divided by 4. Just like the scores are going to be lower in this. And this actually does inherently benefit the bot, right?
Because it plays in every game, yes.
Yes, because it plays in every game, the more games you play, the more your average score is. That's really how these guys scored it?
Well, it's how they're scoring the tournament. I don't know if it's how they're. I don't think it's how they're scoring their bot, or how they're measuring their bot's performance. But I
Okay,
have been
sure.
tracking the bot score alongside everything else. I have the average scores as well, but I only have the average scores for the current standings, not for the time in the past when this game was played. So maybe I can bring up an infographic here. Hopefully, editor meme will come in here and throw up something that shows what positions everyone is in right now.
Yeah, I feel like average score is definitely the right way to go about doing this. And like, sure, there are going to be some people who are going to perform really well because they like played in 2 games and soloed in one of them. Like, good for them. But I think that's relevant um,
Yeah,
because there are very good diplomacy players who have full time jobs who can't play in a bunch of games in this tournament. And by saying that all of them, whatever, I'm not in charge of the tournament scoring.
yeah.
I think it is weighted to make the bot do better.
This does seem to be the case, but I think yeah, it's more weighted that way to try and get people to play more. I think. Um,
Right, because you need to have some incentive. If somebody just soloed their first game, if it was only average score, they would never play another game, and they would be right to.
yeah.
So you have to do something to be like, hey, you can play more games and yada yada, and your later games are worth more points. But whatever.
Yep. But yeah, so this game ended in a solo for me, and that I think a fairly large part of that was due to the bot running in on Italy right at the start. Obviously, the key that made me solo was Germany not running back to the stalemate line when they needed to, which you would normally say is a pretty bot-like thing to do, right? Not not getting back on the stalemate line. But the bot was Austria, and the bot's moves earlier helped me, not later.
Yep.
I don't think this was an amazingly well played game by me. I think it was more so that things fell into place. I assume you'd agree with that, given the reactions to some of my moves earlier.
Yeah, you had some early game moves that I did not agree with. But at the same time, I mean, you made a bunch of very good moves, and like your crazy convoy just like worked. So
Yeah, you got to showboat at some point. The stupid convoy was part of that.
the stupid fucking convoy, man. Just like
uh,
cost you so many turns.
Highlight of the game right there. The
Yeah,
convoy in full 1903. This is So beautiful.
Yep.
But yes, so that was game number 1. I guess we'll come back to this tournament for game number 2 at some point soon. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.